for your free games with Prime in June.
Battle Man and Beast for survival set in the Himalayas in the open-world action-adventure shooter Far Cry 4. Then, adventure to the high seas as Pirate Guybrush Threepwood in the point-and-click adventure Escape from Monkey Island. Join the WRC Championship to win the most challenging motor racing competition in the world. Build yourself a cat cafe of your dreams in the sim game Calico. Journey with the Astrologaster, who uses the stars to cure the sick in 1592 London. Then, follow Alice on a musical adventure in Across the Grooves. With Amazon Prime, you also get free shipping, videos, music, groceries, and more. Play your favorite games straight from the cloud on Amazon Luna. Go to gaming.amazon.com for all these free games and more. Go where the games take you.
And welcome back to the Smite Pro League, powered by our good friends over at Prime Gaming here in Season 9. Thank you so much to Prime Gaming for being the sponsor of the SPL. And if you haven't already gotten a Prime membership for yourself, as you saw in the video, you get free shipping, music, videos, groceries, and even more. If there's something that you've been wanting to buy, you don't want to go out and get it, or you don't want to wait a long time, get a Prime membership to do so, and then link that up to your Twitch account so you can get all the cool free games that you get every single month, as well as exclusive content in the games that you may or may not have already been playing, and maybe it'll incentivize you to play some of those games that some of that content comes out there with. And you also get a free Twitch Prime subscription to any of your favorite streamers once a month as well. So make sure that you get yourselves a Prime Gaming subscription and a Prime Gaming membership, so that way you guys can have some fun out there for yourself. Thank you one more time to Prime Gaming for being the sponsor of Season 9 of the SPL. It's J-Mac and Charlie here for our final set of the day, our third one. The Oni Warriors and the Solar Scarabs is going to be coming up in just a moment. And I think Dave was right at the end of the last segment to say that this is a very data-heavy kind of matchup that we're going to be watching. The Warriors, after coming off of a big win prior in the phase, and then with the Solar Scarabs not able to find a win earlier on, able to at least take a game over the Bolts. Both these teams having a little bit of fallout during Masters. We'll kind of get to see how these teams can square off in our final match today.
Yeah, and it could be, I didn't even realize, I mean, I watched them both, and I even casted one, but 2-0s across the board thus far, so we'll have to see who's going to be able to come across and just assert some dominance at the beginning of the match, because it seems whoever's taken that first game continues, at least for today. At least that, maybe that's just the Sunday mentality, who's to say, but the Scarabs and the Oni Warriors both, they have a lot to prove, you know, because the Warriors had such a great phase one. Not perfect, but definitely better than we thought, right? And then the Scarabs fell a little bit short of everyone's expectations. So, given how they performed in Masters, I think the Oni Warriors probably want to do a little better, and the Scarabs definitely wanted to do better. So, I think both these teams got a lot on their shoulders here.
Yeah, the Solar Scarabs are a team that everybody has a lot of eyes on. It's a very vocal team when it comes to social media. You know, you see these guys talking all the time. You know, we're going to make ourselves known. We're going to continue to climb ourselves up those charts, up those rankings, and find these wins over these big teams. They found a single-game win over the Bolts yesterday, which was a very impressive win by the Scarabs, something that we haven't seen from them at least since the World Championships, when they were able to take down a team like the Dragons. But for now, it really just feels like this team is still kind of trying to find out how they all mesh together.
Yeah, in my mind, we have to look at that solo matchup, right? Scary D has been looking pretty solid. It was he took a big break from Smite. When he came back, I was wondering, would he be rusty or would he be, you know, back to his former glory? Was a little bit rusty, but in that matchup against the Bolts specifically, he was finding a lot of action in that solo lane up against Haddix. He looked pretty solid, and now he's going to be up against Nika, one of the top scoring fantasy league solo laners that we have right now. And it's going to be a tall ask, right? If Nika gets out to a big start, that's not going to look good for the whole team. If he gets out rolling, usually he's able to help carry his squad. So Scary D has a lot on his shoulders here already. But if he gets to play through Scream, if Scream's able to come over there, help out the solo lane a ton and get them ahead, I imagine Scary D is going to be able to, you know, really facilitate for his squad on the, you know, he was liking the Kakolin a lot, for example, picks like that.
And one thing that, you know, we talk a lot about with the Dragons, but it's also in the same light of the Solar Scarabs, is you never know exactly what these players are going to bring out. You never know what kind of style of team composition is going to come about the Scarabs. When we see the Shiva get locked in, the Shiva was something that typically went over to the jungle, and then Scary D brought out and had a stellar performance on it over in the solo lane. But his solo lane matchup over there is going to be Nika on the side of the Oni Warriors. And the Warriors, a team, phase number one, like we said, they had a very strong, standout performance. You know, they were kind of struggling to make it back into the SPL through their qualifiers, then had a breakout in phase number one, finding big wins over some of the top teams out there, notably the Atlantis Leviathans, kind of the big one at that point. And then when it came down into the Masters, maybe a little bit of an underperformance out of the team.
Yeah, I mean, I think they definitely were having some troubles adapting to this new style of meta, which most teams were. Let's be honest, if you weren't the Tartarus Titans and Masters, you were a little bit confused about what was going on, and then you sort of got your bearings under you, that sort of thing. But I think this squad's been looking very solid up until this point. You know, they've ironed out some of the problems they were having, and they've been able to play through everyone so well. They've got so many different carries on this squad, right? Usually, you just look to your ADC and you say, this person pops off, your mid, this person pops off. I think everyone on the Oni Warriors is able to have pop-up performances as long as Neil is sitting there setting up for this team and able to be healing for them, and, you know, Cuvo gets active early, that sort of thing. When everything falls into place, they just look so good.
And Nika has been such a flexible player in that role, starting out the season playing Assassins in the solo lane, still able to play his traditional Warriors, and even now throwing Hunters into the mix. So we know that there's a lot of flexibility with all the players in the role. Cuvo Fred, even into the jungle, has been kind of flexing between these Assassins, the Guardians at the start of the year, and now some of the mages that have been making their way into that position.
That was a rude highlight we just showed. I mean, he just whiffed all 3 power shots, and they were like, look at this. He was able to get the kill after the fact, but...
You didn't have to put the man on blast like that.
I mean, it wasn't me. I didn't make the highlight reel. He still got the kill, and that's what matters. Either way, and that's my point, though. It was very early on, level 4, level 5. If Cuvo's able to find those successful ganks, the whole team's able to profit from it, and they look so much stronger as a unit.
Well, now that we've gotten to, unfortunately, blast Cuvo Fred with a bad highlight, let's go and have maybe a little bit of an uplifting conversation with him of our pregame interview. Cuvo, thanks for coming out for the interview. We talk a lot about the meta and kind of stuff like that. As we get to the end of the week, just want to ask, what have you and some of your teammates been doing, in your spare time when you guys aren't gaming, you guys out there, going out to the gym or anything like that, watching some TV together, anything going on?
Yeah, we do a whole bunch of stuff together. We have 2 apartments kind of close to each other.
Okay.
Personally, I like to enjoy the weather, so I've been outside a lot. I met some friends around here, so I've just been hanging out, honestly. And yeah, it's just been great. I've been enjoying it a lot.
No, it sounds good. Charlie was telling me that you just recently been getting into Spy Family. That's definitely a show that I've been trying to watch. I mean, how have you been enjoying that so far? Just maybe a review for the fans out there.
It's been good. I can highly recommend it.
Okay,
sure.
Good recommendation. And have you bought anything on Prime recently? I know we've got the Prime Gaming stuff that's going out there. Have you gotten anything cool from Amazon recently?
I got these shoes.
Ooh, yeah, you do got some nice shoes out there.
So they're very comfy. I like those, so yeah.
Yeah. How's the team feeling going into this matchup? Against Solar Scarabs, both you guys weren't able to find wins to kind of start the season out just yet. Both of you guys looking for a win today, though.
Yeah, I mean, with the new patch like we saw for the Masters LAN, there's a lot of things up in the air, and it's about really picking up the ball on what works and what doesn't work. So it's been a process to eliminate what we don't think is good and what is good. So, I mean, we obviously lost pretty roughly on Friday against the Leviathans, which is never fun. But what can you do? It's just about bouncing back, and we're here today to beat the Scarabs, and that's what we're going to do.
Well, there you go. Maybe hopefully you and the team can bounce back and find a win. Good luck in your set. I'll let you get back with the team.
Thank you.
Radiating confidence.
He's got some nice shoes.
I mean,
if I was wearing slides like that, I'd be pretty confident too.
I know, but usually we get the answer something along the lines of, we'll see how it goes. We're feeling confident, that sort of thing. But he said we're here to beat the Scarabs, and that's what we're going to do, and that's what I like to hear. A man that's on a mission, and he's ready to bounce back because, again, he said it himself. It wasn't a great play up against the Leviathans. We're probably expecting a little bit more from themselves, and now it's time to show it.
It's definitely going to be a massive match for both these teams to show what they've still got to make sure that the Oni Warriors, they're all laughing. I wonder if they were listening into the interview to see what Cuvo was talking about there, as Cuvo can now rejoin the team and start to recuperate for their game time here. Because up against the Solar Scarabs, as Cuvo alluded to, his team didn't find a whole lot of success against the Leviathans. It was not particularly a close matchup there. Now going to the Solar Scarabs, who were able to have a somewhat close match against the Olympus Bolts, maybe puts a little bit more pressure on the Warriors.
Yeah, I don't think the Scarabs are too happy with that one either. They did get the win, as you mentioned, and then just to add insult to injury, Barra said, we weren't even practicing because I was sick, so at least we got the dub, that sort of thing. So probably doesn't feel too good either. The Scarabs are definitely looking for a set win. That's what they probably want under their belts at the moment, and given the fact that they haven't been able to find too much success with the comps they've been playing, with the style they've been playing, again, I have to highlight, every time we talk about the Scarabs, they find early leads against just about anyone. You look 10 minutes into the game, they're 2,000 to 3,000 gold up. What do they translate it into? More often than not, the answer is nothing. So that's where they really have to improve on. With only one win to their name in week one, set phase one. We're in phase two now. So they have to figure out what was working and just polish that to a T. We had Slaney in for the interview yesterday, and he said, we were well aware of what was not working, and we've been trying to iron that out. We're not too focused on who we're facing. We're not focused on who's in front of us. We just need to iron out our own gameplay. And given the way that they played yesterday, it seems like they have done that to a certain amount, and they have to, keep improving in that regard.
And that does always kind of seem to be the name of the game with a lot of teams is they don't look at the individual matchup that they're going against. A lot of teams just want to make sure that they're still playing within their own style. And then once they get to the actual battleground, they get that first game under their belt, they then start to make some of those adaptations to what the enemy team is then kind of playing through. And both these teams have two kind of distinct style of meta plays. I mean, the Oni Warriors still sticking with a much more traditional. We have seen some of the flex over into this double Hunter in the solo lane kind of style of play, where the Solar Scarabs are sticking more towards this kind of strange out there picks for things, seeing things like the Shiva solo more often. We're seeing the Yuang finally make its way out. We were seeing Scream last phase bring things like Morgan Le Fay jungle. So the Solar Scarabs will always keep you guessing when it comes to their compositions.
Yeah, that's definitely the truth. I'm trying to figure out what the Oni Warriors were doing just then. I thought they were playing rock paper scissors, but I think maybe they're just showing like they are ready to game, that sort of thing. I mean, they definitely look ready. That much I can understand, but I thought maybe they were trying to send us a cryptic message of sorts. But you're right to highlight these different style of picks, and they work to different degrees of success, we'll call it, because we'll see Scream use the Morgan Le Fay jungle and it'll just pop off, and I'm like, oh wow, this pick looks pretty solid, and then you turn around and you see it again and it's like, okay, now it's just getting farmed. Is it really something that can work, or was it a one-off thing? And that the element of surprise is certainly something that can work, right? Anyone can beat a team once. It's can you come back in a 3-game set and take them over twice? That sort of style of play is what the Scarabs have sort of branded for themselves, right? They have so many different styles that they can whip out at any moment. The question is how many of them are actually going to bring that early pressure and that late game team fight I want to highlight on. That's really where I think they need the most work, and where they have looked great at times and not so great at other times. For example, yesterday, we saw the Oleron play where Baronic just fat-fingered his ult and just wasted it, and then those sort of things. That can't be happening up against the Oni Warriors, right? You really need to be playing to a certain degree of perfection to make sure that these fights go your way.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that whenever we talk to some of the SCC teams, whenever they do get to come in the studio, we get to interview them. And something that we talked about, with the Valkyries when they had first joined into the league is the difference between, the SCC teams and the SPL teams is in the SCC teams, you can make mistakes and get away with quite a few of them. You're not going to get punished super hard. You make one mistake at the SPL level, going back to the example of the Sanctified Field and the Tusky drop at the end of Game 3 yesterday against the Bolts with the Scarabs. They're going to capitalize on it. A good SPL team is going to capitalize on mistakes like that. The Bolts were able to do so. They get a Fire Giant, and then they can basically wipe it in the game out there. But I think the big topic between these two teams that I really want to more so dial to whenever it comes to at least the discussion on the desk pregame is kind of this duo lane, because Inbound and Neil have kind of been sacrificial lambs for both of their squads more often than not. Both these guys are getting caught out of position very often. But Vote and Stu have at least been able to kind of keep that team and keep that duo lane alive for their teams.
Yeah, I didn't really think about it until you just brought it into perspective, but their duo lanes are very similar in that regard, where Neil has no problem dying 4, 5, 6 times in a match as long as his team looks good. Inbound, vastly similar in that regard, and Stewart and Vote are usually playing, even though that's happening, even though the duo lane is getting a little bit far behind, they always have that carry potential, usually pretty even in lane, or, they're not wanting to have their deaths blunder, right? They're just saying, okay, you know what, maybe my support died, I'll stay behind the tower. I'll lose farm. Yeah, I'll get behind a few levels, but I'll still be able to get my damage off late game. I'll still be able to provide, the auto attack carry damage that my team needs, that sort of thing. So very similar teams in that regard. I like that. I'm not going to say an analogy, but I like that comparison you brought up there.
Yeah, and then looking over towards the mid lane, you have Baronic versus Dardes. Baronic has been going for a lot more of the kind of off-meta style of play. We typically see a lot of things like Hunters come out of him. The Charybdis comes to mind, the AMC, and then you think around things like Oleron. And then once those picks are kind of gone, we've been seeing a little bit more of the Giannis. We saw the Hu Huang a couple of times come out of him. So Baronic's kind of got that style. Dardes, again, these teams, really, when I think about it, are both very similar to the style of play they want to go, the types of picks that they do. They just do it a little bit differently. It's a weird way to put it, where the Warriors stay very traditional with their strange picks, but the Solar Scarabs are kind of a little bit more outlandish with it, but it's within their own style and brand.
I think that's because the Solar Scarabs are still trying to figure out what style of Smite they want to play, right?
Could be a little bit of that. We'll see exactly what style comes out of the Solar Scarabs and the Oni Warriors. Game number 1, picks and bans to fire things out. Now, I mentioned that we've seen the Yu Huang in the mid lane, at least for Baronic. I mentioned that's probably not something that you would want to first ban away from the team. It's something that he was going to when it was a little bit later down the God pool, but gods that have been being banned away consistently at the top end. And finally, I'm just going to say, finally, we are seeing this god shown some priority when it comes to a ban. Chernabog taken away by the Scarabs alongside the Emoja. Then the Oni Warriors will take away Mercury, Olerun, and Nox.
Yeah, the Nemesis is open, something notable here. I'm surprised the Chernobog did get banned away, because more often than not, we've just seen that get through and people decide to deal with it. But the global presence, so annoying, something you don't want to deal with. If you engage on the left lane or in that duo lane, you want to say, hey, let's just try to shut that down. So the Oni Warriors are going to first pick the Khepri. This is something that we've seen highly prioritized, which means the Nemesis is still open, which means it's actually not still open. The Solar Scarabs will grab that one, followed, actually the Uller was first. So the Uller followed by the Nemesis. It's going to be a strong answer back. These picks, more often than not, are banned away, the Uller and the Khepri respectively. So grabbing those immediately, and then we're going to see the Daji. Two picks that Daji does quite well into. Uller and Nemesis neither have any CC immunity built into the kit. Gonna have to beat that every time, or get the cleanse with the Solar or the Scarab's Blessing.
CCI lacking, and then the Morgan gonna be the pickup for the Oni Warriors, a signature pick for Dardas. Double Pal Lao, if need be, even a double Scarab's Blessing if he wants to turn into the Khepri. And now it always opens up that conversation to the opposite team. You know, what do you not want to give a transformation target over? What do you not want Dardas to have access to for your picks? And then you have to throw a couple of bans out there as well. What do you not want the Oni Warriors to have two of on their side? With the Daji and the Morgan, we can assume a lot of double Pal out early, and with that Olerun banned away means that there's a little bit less counterplay on the field to it.
Yeah, the Solar Scarabs had that option, and they are just going to take the Gab immediately. Something that, you know, helps cleanse the Pal. The Stone Shield is going to be a great tool there, but the Oni Warriors have two Palos, and you rarely get two Geb shields off in a fight, so still going to have to hold on to the beads. I would not be surprised if Inbound is forced into beads, but more often than not, you know what, he doesn't even get beads, and he just decides to die, you know? He's more so, I'm going to get the shell for my team, that sort of thing. So we'll have to see if he's forced into the beads or just decides to, you know, use that shield on his team and be the sort of sacrificial lamb that we've seen. That sort of play style, right? Where I might get pulled in, but I'm going to hit a big cataclysm, I'll die, my team will be able to succeed in that regard. Still, we don't quite know if this Uller is going over to Stewart or Baronic is going to pilot in the mid lane. For my money, probably is going the way of Stewart. I think Baronic has been playing pretty well on these mages in the mid lane recently, so we'll have to see how that goes. But Yu Huang is actually going to be banned away.
I would not be surprised, or maybe at least just for me, I'd like to maybe see a Charybdis banned away as well. When you're dealing with double Pal out, you want two ways to be able to get out of it, whether it be a CC immune ult and a set of beads. Yu Huang has two forms of CC immunity just built into his kit. Same with Charybdis when you have that Whirlpool form and the ultimate, so that's also something Baronic has liked to play. But instead, it's going to be Nu Wa banned away by the Oni Warriors. Still, some power picks that could come out of the Solar Scarabs, notably one of those, King Arthur, who's found his way into quite a few drafts so far this weekend.
Yeah, the Coca-Cola notably is still open if that is something that Nika wants to go to. Both use Glad Shield quite well and are going to find some success in the 1v1. I don't think either one of them just outright wins that matchup, but, you know, it's going to be something you could definitely go for. Ho Yi is the hover, as there are no hunters yet on the side of the Oni Warriors. We've seen Nika play a few of these hunters, but with Chernobog being banned, with AMC being banned, I don't see too many solo lane hunters being the option. I would rather just see any sort of warrior being locked in there.
We do see the Ho Yi being hovered. One more option still available to the Warriors, assuming that this Ho Yi does get locked in. And the Solar Scarabs have their pick for, it could either be Stewart, though we have been seeing Stewart go to the Uller a lot more often than we've seen Baronic going that way. So it could just be a Baronic pick to round things out for the Solar Scarabs. So the Warriors starting to dip into their bank time a little bit here, because they do need both of their, or at least one of their carries in this regard with the Ho Yi, and then they are going to need that solo laner, as you mentioned, for the Oni Warriors. Amaterasu going to be the pickup, something that Nika has flexed himself over towards quite a few times, and then it will be the Ho Yi locked in.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now that you bring up the fact that Uller could be going mid, and I know I talked about it a bit, and I still think it will be going over to the duo lane. Maybe we see one of those magical ADCs that Stewart has been wanting to play. Oleron, not going to be the option, but Freya and Kronos are still out there. We haven't seen any of them. Actually, we did see Vote play Freya. It wasn't great, but, you know, we know Stewart definitely likes playing those. I still think this is going to be, you know, something like the Morgan Le Fay, the Janus is still open. Something that has CC immunity and that's not going to care too much about the Daji. It just seems like Baronic wants to be safe in that lane, right? If you can be safe, get a Warlock Sash online, anything like that is going to help you out a ton. Some sort of team fight presence also wouldn't be too bad. There's not a lot of AoE damage here. I see a lot of single target, and the fact that Nemesis just wants to ult one person, Uller wants to axe one person, and then you have the Cataclysm from Geb. That's really all the AoE damage you're going to have here.
You can have one heck of a chain onto a single person there between Geb, Arthur, and then the Nem Uller. Zeus being hovered.
That's some AoE damage.
That's a lot of AoE damage, but it's a guy that we haven't seen in quite some time. Throughout majority of the Masters land, really only anybody who would ever really look at him would be a player like Moswell, but I don't even think we saw him at that point. So for the first time in this phase, Zeus going to be hovered in. That's going to give a lot of magical damage over to the Scarabs. It's going to give a lot of AoE damage over to the Scarabs. How do you feel about the Zeus as a final pick?
Ooh, boy. It's got the AoE damage. It's got the team fight. All of that is true, and that's what I was asking for. But one thing it doesn't bring is CC immunity. You're going to be up against 2 Powwows and an Amaterasu.
Ooh.
Are you maybe, you know what? Baronic saw the highlight, realized Cubo missed all 3 Powwow shots, and was like, I don't need beads. He's going to miss them anyway, so I'm just going to lock in the Zeus and not really care. You guys can see now why I've been laughing, because Dave and Gore have been so hyped on the side of the map. I'm glad that we finally got blessed in showing what was going on over there.
Yeah, we do get a little bit of fun to be had over on the caster side of the room, which, again, notably, it's only like 6 feet away from me at best here, but looking at the Oni Warriors draft, I think you're right to bring up a lot of the team fight presence of the Dodgy, the Morgan, and the Amaterasu as a whole. Solar Scarabs have 3 players, or 3 gods, I should say, on the team that won't have a way to get out of those naturally. They're going to have to rely on things like the purification beads. When it comes down to these late-game team fights, Solar Scarabs, they've got a little bit of AoE damage, but do you think that this is enough to try and deal with what the Warriors have against them?
I mean, I would argue they have 4 gods that can't get out of that Palo. Of course, King Arthur can use that charged ultimate, but it is rare that you have it up and ready whenever that Palo comes in. Usually you're wanting to use that to engage or use it in lane, that sort of thing. So making sure you're saving that fully charged ultimate for the dodgy Palo, it's not going to be a great option. So I think the Oni Warriors have so many avenues to try and just force these ganks. Again, 2 Powwows pretty much forces Inbound to say, okay, I'm going to shield Baronic on the first one, right? I'm going to make sure that he doesn't get pulled in. Now the second one comes in, Baronic uses the beads, maybe Inbound ult, but there's going to be a point where all of this overlaps and someone's getting pulled. More often than not, I imagine it'll be the Geb because, you know, Inbound will say, I'm going to use the shield on you instead of me, save the Geb's life over the Zeus. The Zeus can still do damage in that regard. So going to be a hard match to survive and get to that late game for the Solar Scarabs. But they still do have some good team fight, as we highlighted.
Yeah, team fight, just when you drop a Zeus right on top of a Cataclysm, so you have Lightning Storm comboing with there, keeping God Stun within, King Arthur being able to essentially take somebody out of a fight, at least for a few seconds out there, could give some opportunities maybe for the Solar Scarabs and some picks more than anything. We talked a little bit earlier about the Nemesis being able to ult one person. Uller going to want to axe toss one person. We'll see if the Solar Scarabs can find themselves to win over the Warriors, or will the Oni Warriors be the one to take game 1?
Pre-game ritual is complete for Gormizer and I as we go into our 3rd and final set of the day and our 7th and final set of the weekend. This one between the Oni Warriors and the Solar Scarabs. And Gore, I was talking to Miff about this on the desk, and I'll set it up in a very similar way for you here on this cast. I think it's very important for both of these two teams in a benchmark for us and our expectations moving forward, because remember, the Oni Warriors blew us all away in Phase 1. Solar Scarabs had a tough time in Phase 1 and during Masters, but the Oni Warriors didn't look great earlier this weekend. Solar Scarabs maybe improved earlier this weekend, but still haven't gotten the win here in Phase 2. I think both of these two teams equally in need of a good set. Even if you lose, a good competitive set.
Yeah, and honestly, it's going to be, like you said, kind of the benchmark I think that we hold these teams at from this point. Like, this is the matchup that last year would have been close, would have gone 3 games, would go back and forth between the two. And so it's going to be, what does Scary D provide? I feel like the Warriors right now are in his meta. Then again, Nika has an absurd win rate on Amaterasu, so that's going to be a fun matchup. I think a lot of it comes down to the jungles. We've talked a lot about how great Scream is, but is it enough, right? Is just Scream enough? How does Baronic perform? Because consistency's been a problem. Stuart's been popping off, actually, so I have to give a lot of credit over to him. He's been having some really good games lately. And so I think there's a lot of high-end for both of these squads, right? I'm talking a lot about the Scarabs, but, same thing. We've seen the Warriors just this year showcase that they can be on top. It's just whether or not we're going to continue getting that through Phase 2, like you said, is really the big question.
Have the Warriors regressed, question mark? Have the Solar Scarabs progressed?
Are the Warriors a hindrance or an asset?
To the league? No, they're an asset. I love every single one of those guys.
They're good dudes.
Very happy that they were able to qualify back in.
I think everyone in this lobby is a great. Well, Stuart gets a little nervous, but they're great interviewers.
Yeah.
They're great interviewees.
All of them. I love talking to all of them. Neil, because him and I have that golf course rapport with one another. We're on the same team whenever we go out and play golf.
Biased commentary from Dave. He prefers Neil.
Yeah,
Ma.
God, I really hope the Oni Warriors win. God, I'm begging Neil Ma to win.
He brings your golf team down when he loses.
Here's the thing. I'm nervous that chat couldn't see through the thick sarcasm I just laid onto that. So chat, no. I just want a good competitive game of Smite. And somehow still it won't have hit the necessary crowd. So let's look a bit at what we've got here in game number 1. Gore, Nika, my solo laner on my fantasy. God, I'm biased again. On my fantasy team, playing one of Nika's, I think, strongest picks, going up against Scary D on one of Scary D's strongest picks. The King Arthur versus the Amaterasu, I think, has the chance to make some waves throughout this game.
This is one that I'm really interested in because I think in lane, it's probably going to come out maybe a little more favored towards Scary D, probably a little more neutral, right, after another item or two you finish off. Although, does look like a different start on the side of Nika, maybe not going to be quite as tanky, depending on where he goes with that, versus Scary D, who, looking at the other side, I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up being built into something like a sovereignty and getting him in more in the front line kind of role. And that's the difference, I think, that these two players in general bring to the role anyways. Like, Nika plays a great frontliner, but when you go back to the Amaterasu games, go watch SSG in Season 7, see what he's doing, and this guy is in the front line, but running the show. He's getting the kills to the point where sometimes it almost feels like kicking and screaming, no matter what his team is doing, he's going to drag them forward and make sure that things are successful. Really good at engaging, really good aura, really good at shredding some prots. So I think, like, in the fight, I'm expecting to see Nika kind of spearheading for the rest of the team, whereas for the Scarabs, Scary D is going to be playing facilitator, right? This isn't going to be someone that I expect to see hard carrying. I'm not expecting like a 6-0 Arthur, but I expect him to make Baronic's job and Stuart's job and Scream's job super easy. Finding that CC, distracting people, pushing back the backline.
Could be first blood, though, onto Nika. Nemesis ultimate down, but a Scream got the damage. One more auto is all the tower needed to answer back. Cuvo Fred in range, has Palau, and Scream does not have beads. Can Cuvo Fred blink, dash, get in range, and he's got to hit the Palau after the fact he's just short of getting there, and Scream will grab first blood onto Nika and head on back. And Gore, you talked about the starter potential for Nika. Started with Katana, I think it was always going to be Golden Blade. And so you maybe were sacrificing a bit of your early game against Scary D in lane. Now you can farm up maybe a bit more effectively, but a bit squishier, and first blood goes to the Scarabs.
I think item number 2, probably we'll see Nika a little more in control, but you lose that first blood, you lose some of that experience. Scary D's got a sovereignty, as I had mentioned and expected earlier. That's going to be dangerous.
Stuart low, uses the beads. A couple more autos would have been there, but Stuart able to walk on away. Does have to use the beads, though, as I've mentioned. Ura, of course, has the leap, has some disengage, but gonna have to use that as all the defensive utility now that he's got.
So a really weird thing, and this is ages ago that this change has happened, but I don't know if you remember, there was a point where I think it was 10 units were knocked off the range of Blink. And, like, for the most part, it was like, now there's certain walls that you're not going to be able to leap over. You're going to have to figure out, like, more creative pathing. It's going to be a little more easy to trace you. If that 10 units is there, Cuvo gets that kill. And it's, like, small things like that. Like, that's a long ago change, but, like, it's those little moments where, like, what the distance is going to give you helps balance things out. And him not getting that and his Blink being on cooldown, I think gives a nice golden opportunity for the Scarabs that now there's no, like, Blink Powwow in mid. There's no Blink anywhere for Cuvo to close that gap for another 40 seconds now. So it's been a nice little window of opportunity for them to get first blood and then just farm.
Yeah. And a good opportunity for Scream to expand on this lead. Golden Blade, he's going to be able to farm this jungle so effectively. Cuvo Fred into the Transcendence, so he's going to have to stack that up. This is what now we've seen for the last couple of waves, where the wave has just crashed underneath Nika's tower or just outside of the range. And Scary D realizes he's going to effectively win any trade. He starts Sovereignty on the King Arthur with Bluestone as well. So he's got some damage to boot. You're not sacrificing all that much going full Sovereignty with your first item there. So Nika, I think at this point, Gore, just trying to stay afloat in that lane. Try to last hit as many of those minions as you can. Avoid the tower from hitting as many of those minions as possible. Doesn't go teleport with his first relic, so he's got to walk back to lane if he keeps getting out-traded. This is why you pick a King Arthur, to dominate this side of the map.
And you can even see, like, it's affecting Nika's play in the sense that, you know, you had highlighted it, but, like, standing just enough inside the tower that the minions are still outside, like, trying to get as much farm as possible without letting the tower take away that experience. You're losing blue buffs. Like, there's not a whole ton you can do over here. At least right now, like I said, you know, finishing off what I assume is going to be a Berserkers. Is just, oh, man, hey, the Pal-Out came up. And it seemed to do its magic. And the Blink.
And the Blink. And no bead still for Stuart. There were 30 seconds left, maybe 45 or so, by the time that kill rotated through. That's what you need to see from Cubo Fred, is if Scream is going Golden Blade, he's going to be able to farm up quickly. Cubo Fred stacking the Transcendence, get active, try to find some pressure on the side of the map where it's more susceptible. And hey, a Geb is a perfect spot to put some of that, but Shell and Lightning Storm will be enough to keep inbound on the map. Baronic, relatively low investment, just drops the ultimate and then walks away.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what we need to see from the Scarabs today. And this is nothing against inbound, but if inbound is overextended, or anyone for that matter is overextended and getting picked, drop something, see if you can help them, but it's then the one after another that go in and end up dying after the fact that I think the Scarabs are going to be able to adapt to and avoid.
One person will try to make a saving play, and then they'll be in trouble, and somebody else will try to save them.
Right.
Like, it is a weird domino effect where, like, I mean, almost like they're climbing a mountain, the guy on the bottom of the rope falls down, it's tugging on your rope, and instead of cutting him off, you let go to try and help pull him up.
Right.
And things like that. And, like, ideally, in a game like this, you know, that one works out well, as you highlighted, and that's not even like an overextension. Like, inbound's in his jungle, but the Warriors were looking for blood. It's just those moments, and we've seen a lot of it. We saw it yesterday. They're going to have to be careful about that.
Cubo Fred low, doesn't have his ultimate, has a little move speed, and a dash out, and Cubo Fred lives. Neilma now under pressure as the Solar Scarabs have sent 4. Scarabs blessing down, and this is exactly what we're talking about.
Look at the Warriors.
See ya, Neil.
Yeah,
later, buddy.
You're dead. Sorry, guy.
And the Solar Scarabs grab a kill onto the Scarab.
You know, here's the big difference. Neil's Canadian. He's gonna be very polite and understanding.
No, the big difference
that, right?
is the mid laner for the Valkyries. No, that's the Big Dipper.
The Big Dipper.
Come on! Sunday afternoon,
Man,
baby!
What? That's like a reference. I don't even. That did get tweeted out, right? Like, that picture was on more than just broadcast. It wasn't like one Benny Q interview with the background. Yeah, it was there.
And I didn't even realize that it was like a play on the words
word Big Dipper. Yeah,
I
you
just
were
thought
just
it was
like, oh yeah, he's the Big Dipper.
And he's in space for some reason.
Because that's how big the gap is between him and everyone
exactly.
else.
No, that's making me sad. I didn't even think that far. I just thought he was in space for no reason. You're bailing me out, though, Gore. As the only Warriors send some more pressure towards the red buff, and actually drop down by inbound. All right, so the Geb with the shockwave rolls on through and steals away, or I guess confirms his own team's blue buff or red buff, and now the purple buff being looked at by the Oni Warriors. But the Scarabs will send 4 to the left side of the map, inbound, stunned and low. Over on the right side of the fight, Neilmon detonated by Baronic. Dardes up into the Pal-Out. He is transformed. Down he crashes. Cubo Fred low again. And Dardes is able to at least trade out one. But Baronic going wild. A double kill for the Zeus. And able to get another one as Stuart here as well. Vote low on the backside, and I'll take a triple to go, says Baronic. A big fight for the Scarabs.
I don't even know who I want to highlight the most in that. I mean, Stuart, like, jukes for forever, it feels like. Inbound as well. Dardes almost gets another kill and is able to pull things back in their favor, at least slightly. And then Vote jumps in. It's that leap in, thinking he's going to get the kill onto Stuart. Now locked around, you know, inbound's low, but he's still Geb. And Baronic was untouched at that point, and good damage from him. I mean, it was a good ult to start things off, and sometimes from a Zeus, that's all you want, but now you're isolated where my shield is, and I've got a chain lightning. Are you kidding me? That's going to be, I mean, just perfect for him. And again, it starts with just a nice, large ultimate off to the side, a shield thrown in there with some chain lightning. He's doing, I mean, this is about as best Zeus play as you're going to get. I'm going to spread the chain, I'm going to get the charges, and I'm going to then hit detonate. Some of them are autos, but it's once Vote leaps in, that's where things like, that's curtains for him.
Yep, and I thought Vote maybe had a chance to turn one around there towards the end of the fight. Comes up just short. Big power spike for Baronic, able to finish off the Warlock staff and go back and get Sands of Time. So, a bit late on the starter item, but starter item arrives nonetheless. Baronic in the driver's seat now. We have seen games where the Solar Scarabs have gotten and funneled kills through Stuart and Stewart has capitalized often. Now Baronic in a position, Gore, where at 3-0-2, fully stacked Book of Thoth, gets the Warlock staff rolling. And he's on Zeus, who can do that in team fights consistently, control space. A good look, a good opportunity for the Scarabs mid laner to show us that he has grown and this team is looking better.
I really like it too, because I'll give Baronic hell and maybe Stewart hell here.
Doesn't have
he's getting
beads.
pulled.
That's a pull and a kill. And Vote was able to answer that one.
So for the same reason, I'll give them both hell occasionally, which is that, consistency is always key, right? Which Baronic, which Stewart are we going to get that day? Are we going to get the Stewart that can carry games and is popping off? Are we going to go Baronic that's carrying games?
Right.
Or are we going to get someone who's a little lackluster and not feeling the impact in team fights? Right now, we're getting the version of Baronic that we always want to see. And with the Zeus doing well, theoretically, it's good around objectives, which is what I was going to say, but the Warriors are maybe feeling themselves.
Yeah, and the Warriors are easily with no. And that is a decently early Gold Fury as well. Normally, 3 minutes from now, maybe 15 minutes or so into the game is when we're starting to consider Gold Furies and really fighting over it. Oni Warriors with just a pick on the Stewart, able to pull the Gold Fury, and that's important because it was over a 3,000 gold lead a moment ago. Doug just showed us about 1,500, even less than that. Big upswings for the Oni Warriors on a very, very quiet play. Dive on Nika here. Could be over the horizon, but Scary D and Scream think otherwise. At least a blue buff invade gone right, as Nika has been slowed down, but still even on levels. I think that's just a good call from the Warriors, Gore.
Yeah.
They get a kill on a Stewart, realize they've got the burn, and pull the Fury.
Well, because, depending on who wants to get aggressive there, that's going to change everything. Same that you can see right here. I mean, Neil having to kind of play cautiously. Dardes is weirdly alone. It feels like the Warriors don't know where they want to be focused right now.
Right, the Scarabs kind of collapsed in on by 4 members of the Oni Warriors, and everyone just kind of passes one another and heads back to their own sides of the jungle for the time being.
They square danced in the jungle.
Gore, I don't know how to square dance, so that means nothing to me. I'll take your word for it, though.
Yeah, you'll swing partners around.
Swing your partner around and around. Kind of, I get it. Baronic being swung around and around by Neoma in mid, and Cubo Fred able to shut down the Zeus. First death of the game for the Scarabs mid laner, but Dardes is low. There's a Scarabs blessing, and it's going to get procced as Scream now looks towards Neoma. And Dardes does end up falling. Neil left alone as Scary D is rotated over from the solo lane. 3 members of the Scarabs chasing down 2 of the Warriors over here on left. But watch out, Nika, dazzling offensive. Amaterasu collapse imminent. Scream gets the Geb shield, drops the Nem ultimate. But Nika just hasn't done enough yet. Dazzling offensive still in the back pocket, now going to get used. Vote survives, Scream does not. And the Solar Scarabs still have some gas in the tank.
I mean, being able to go essentially 2 for 2 right now, but Nika, isolated alone, all it takes is a little bit of close. Nope. Even then, I think that was too far away.
Oh, no.
That's that movement speed, and it's working for him. Look, Amaterasu has a little bit of self-sustain and a little bit of movement speed. And that buff working wonders there for Nika. So 2 for 2. I think at this point it's worth evaluating like small kills, right? Killing Baronic towards the start of that fight, probably worth, I would argue, the most of all the kills that have been coming through.
Close, I think.
And brings it back towards him, right? Because 3-1 and 2, being able to get a little shutdown on someone who got a triple kill. Both relics get burned by both mid laners, and then you go jungle for jungle. It screams 4, 2, and 3, so adding an extra death there maybe feels a little worthwhile. So like slight win overall for the Warriors, but one that is so small, it's like, okay, cool, now you're back 100 gold in your favor.
I don't know if that fight is that close at all if Baronic doesn't die at the beginning, which of course is why the Warriors are willing to
He wipes the floor with them if he's alive any longer.
Right. A 3-0 Zeus that actually gets to fight there, especially in the jungle. That Lightning Storm would have made a world of difference. And that's credit to the Warriors. They get the pick and then realize that, well, we have a chance to scrap now that Baronic is off the map. Baronic going into a different book. Soul Reaver has been a very popular option after Book of Thoth. Although there was Book of the Dead for a little while.
For a while.
That was the flavor of the month that everyone was looking towards. I won't rule that one out just yet. Might need to rule out Cubo Fred, his chances to survive. Stewart again is going to get pulled in here. Doesn't have beads, but I'm not sure there's enough damage. Cubo Fred gets the Scarab's blessing, and as such stays on the map. Vote helps delete Stewart on the back end of a powwow pull, and we are fighting again on the left side of the map. Dardes is transformed into the Nem. We'll de-transform here in just a moment. As we stand, a 2-for-1 trade. Make it 3. Cubo Fred feeling himself, and the Oni Warriors grab 3 kills.
Yeah, now essentially the opposite, right? Scarabs had a very good early grasp on this game, but this is the first time that the Warriors have been able to leave a fight and be confident about it. Everything they just did was well done. Like, if Cubo has to die for the setup to happen for Dardes and Vote, and I guess later on if Nika joins in to be successful, then that's gonna be worthwhile, right? Like, if it tanks your KDA, if you end up going, 3, 5, and 12, whatever, like some large number of assists, then it's worthwhile for you just because of that large setup. And that's what he does right there, right? That setup plus with Dardes, swapping over, you had called it, into the Nim, and then Vote being able to find some really good ricochets. These fights in the jungles, if they can get rid of Boronic, it ends up favoring the Warriors, especially if there's only single target damage left after Boronic is gone.
Right.
All of a sudden, Neil Ma is able to use his ult more effectively. You're maybe able to find more separation or dive a little deeper for Nika without having to worry about that chain lightning. So if they can get rid of Boronic more often at the start of these fights or zone them out, then all of a sudden the Warriors have a much more controlling jungle fight.
I feel for Stu right now in this game. Feels like beads have been burnt by Cubo Fred or Neo or a stun from Vote, and then it's been punished by Cubo Fred every single time. How many times have we seen beads down on Uller, and then a rotation over, a powwow, and then chains have just been connecting? Cubo Fred has been on point with it. This Uller is just not.
And always at the tier 2, right? Like it's not even like he's doing him the grace of doing it in lane. He's waiting for him to walk by in the jungle and stripping him in to where he has no safe mechanism. Yeah. It's a rough game.
He's got Aegis now down. Beads are back, so at least have that in this fight. But a lot of CC, they're going to want to Beads out. Initial stun onto Inbound, but return stun onto Nilma. And the Scarab's Blessing remains in the back pocket through death. Chain 1 good. That pulls in Scream. Ultimate down from Vote on the Ho Yi. Stewart has to use the Beads this time. He'll leap away. But Nika now is able to rotate through, and Stu is gone yet again. Dardes transforms into the Nem once again, but now he is alone with all the remaining members of the Solar Scarabs. De-transform means death. And the Scarabs buy their time, Gore, and they're winning a 2-for-1 fight.
And look, they can chase this down. Nika's still behind them. That honestly might be a little more dangerous than they're giving credit for, but Vote locked away. I mean, even if you don't get the kill onto the solo laner, you're more than fine to aggress onto this Fury. I have to say, the biggest winner.
Oh, Inbound.
We might have to hold that thought.
Oh, no. Nika hovering close by. Wonder. He does it in 20 seconds. There's no way this Oni Fury is still up for the next 20 seconds. You are also buying
Dash
time for
mirror,
Cubo Fred. Nika sustaining up. Solar Scarabs confirm the Fury. Nika gets out. And it looks like Boronic won't have Detonate to capitalize on that kill. So Gore, after all of the back and forth we've gotten, we are effectively dead even here at 20 minutes. If you ignore the kills, you look at XP, you look at gold, 1,000 give or take either way. The ebbs and flows of this game have just been breakneck. Scarabs have won some big fights. Warriors have won some big fights. This one now is a swing back by the Scarabs. And they needed that one. The Oni Warriors had controlled the last couple of fights.
A good thing for the Scarabs as well. 2 trebuchets that are spawned up right now. One's already marching down mid, so that's going to be interesting to see what kind of push power it can give. And maybe some proximity to allow them like a Pyromancer or a Fire Gen. But realistically, I want to look back at the last fight because you had called it like it starts off with a collapse onto Inbound and then turns immediately with Neil going down. The thing that catches my eye the most is Boronic's Beads usage. And realistically, it's lack thereof at first. He gets grabbed by Cubo's chains, but recognizes that Cubo's got nothing. If we get pulled in, there's no follow-up. Nothing's going to happen. So Boronic and I believe Scream both get pulled in. Then Boronic is able to not only then use that positioning against the Warriors, but when Nika rotates in and you have a dazzling offensive in your face, you're really starting to get collapsed on, you're able to Beads, drop the Lightning Storm, and just run to the backline again, get a lot more damage done. And so it's once again this Zeus being the problem. I think as long as Zeus exists on this team fights are great for the Scarabs.
I'm not sure how long Nika is going to exist on the map. Dazzling offensive stuns 3, and I will eat my words. Nika gets the stun and leaves. Dardes will do you one better, gets the kill onto Boronic, chains onto 2. Then how many times have we seen this from Cubo Fred? The man's on a warpath and adds a kill on the end of the fight as well. Scary D gunned down, double kill by Cuvo Fred.
Yeah, this is their
Stewart
fight.
dropped, and now Scream, the last alive. The Oni Warriors turn their eyes towards the FG. And the player cam of Cuvo Fred tells you all you need to know. Big fight from the jungler.
I mean, it comes down to simple. Look, Stewart's 1-5-8. Stewart is exactly where the Warriors want them. It is unimpactful, is not able to get anything done. These abilities aren't doing much. 2 levels down from Vote, and this build isn't going to give you the same punch that Vote is going to have in every single auto. You get Nika, you have now a little bit more of those prods online, so you can live through a lot of these.
That starts with Nika,
a
right?
massive 3-man stun, but more notably, burns Baronic's beads immediately, and then the team just rushes the Zeus. I mean, they blitzed him, they sack him, they did whatever you want to call it. They got rid of him, and once Baronic was gone, again, it's way easier for the Warriors to deal with the single target damage that the Scarabs have because of Neil.
Gore, think about how this game started for Baronic. He was at 3-0, and now he's 4-3, so he's gone 1-3. And is 3 levels behind Dardes. The focus of the Oni Warriors has just been jumping on Baronic at the start of these fights any way you can. And that's the threat with Zeus, right? I mean, it's relatively immobile. You can get jumped on and taken down. And that's what's happened to Baronic a couple of times in a row. Dardes has really picked things up. And you got to shout out Nika. Nika feels inevitable at this point. At some point, he's going to make a play. 3-man dazzling offensive to stay alive. And then credit to the rest of the Oni Warriors and Cuvo Fred for spearheading the reinitiation. So Fire Giant on 5 members of the Oni Warriors. And the largest gold lead we've seen yet this game, right around 4,000 for the Oni Warriors. And you're able to knock down a few more Tier 2 towers as well.
The thing I'm really interested in, it feels like small in the grand scheme of things, but Dardes gets the speed buff and gives the red buff over to Cuvo, just like a minor swap it feels like, but it showcases to me that Cuvo wants to do more damage. He's getting a lot of, you had mentioned it, but the chains and the way that Dodgy works, I feel like this red buff's really going to enable some hard hitters from Cuvo while letting Dardes use this invis, get to the backline, chase people down, play more of an assassin style that you see from like base kit Morrigan versus like transformed Morrigan. And so it makes things really interesting, if it even comes into play, right? The Scarabs, at this point, I don't know if you defend a Tier 2 here. If you overextend too far, if you can keep Baronic safe, you feel pretty good about it. But other than that, trying to make a stand against the Warriors with a lead, and specifically how some of these fights have been going, could be pretty dangerous to try and hold on to this.
Yeah, Dart has been great with his Nemesis transformation so far this game. Scream, as the actual Nemesis, has put together a nice performance as well, though, at 5-3 and 5. You're going to need to shred down one of these targets, but that's where Capri Res helps you out, right? An ultimate from Scream drops on someone's head. Neilma says, nah, you're coming back for the rest of this fight. This is dangerous. Yeah, rotation around the backside from Cubo and Nika. Ultimate down, but Dardes able to walk back from it. Vote, though, run down by Scream. Dardes answers back. Baronic, first one to fall, so both teams have lost one of their carries. Now we're a bit split as the Oni Warriors are in the middle of the Solar Scarabs, but it's Nika and Dardes who have enough tankiness and damage to kind of run down the health bars, but Scream does as well. A double kill for the Scarabs jungler, and now we collapse inward. Can Nika get it done? No, Stewart can, though. Double kill for the Scarabs ADC, and Fire Giant is going to get wiped off the map.
He finishes Heartseeker, and Stewart comes back with just an extra punch behind him. And at this point, Nika, like, it's so weird. Pathing-wise, this is going to movement speed.
Axe,
he's got healing.
No, never mind.
You've got a couple of people here.
Sustained up. All right,
I don't know. I don't know how far away from this he can make. But he's buying time.
Now I think if he dodges one more axe, which he doesn't. Oh my God, he dodges everything else. This guy's obnoxious. There's the knockup. There's the kill. Stewart's on a killing spree.
Okay.
An unofficial triple in that fight for Stewart. Improves from. No shot. He was 1-5 going into that fight.
He was 1-5 going into
that. 4-5. Big fight for the Uller to keep the Scarabs in this game.
And this is going to be a weird instance. I almost think I would have preferred if Nika had just run into the Phoenix and died. I think at that time, the last person that hit him, like, just not give the kill credit over. I think there's a world he probably gets out of there. But it is very, very, very specific interactions and things like that. So great fight. I honestly wasn't too sure about that fight from the Scarabs. I didn't think that it was going to be a very powerful one for them. But their dive to kill Vote was just as important. In fact, maybe even more well executed than the dive onto Baronic, because the dive onto Baronic goes through a tier 2. You're taking a lot of damage in the process just to get there, and Baronic gets some good damage out in the process. So you invest a heavy amount from the Warriors to get the 1 kill. Well, the Scarabs get to surge forward, ignore 2 members of the Warriors, and essentially fight a 5v3 for a little bit, maybe 4v3 with the positioning Baronic had. So they had a numbers advantage in one fight, get a very important kill, take off a guy that has crit and has been doing incredibly well. I mean, 3-3 and 9 is a great slash line for Vote. And that turns that fight around, trading that out. Plus, again, the Heartseeker, Stuart finally getting to feel like they're impactful on this fight.
Yep.
I think that was a big deal. If Stuart is still hitting about as hard as they were about 5 minutes ago, then we're looking at the Warriors coming out on top and very much controlling that. But a really, really good fight from the carry for the Scarabs. And once again, showcasing that sometimes even if you sit on a guy and make him 1 in 5, it's not going to be enough to shut them down.
Well, scaling catches up at some point as long as
he was 3 levels down not too long ago.
As long as you're able to farm and get those items, we know what late game Uller can do. Baronic has caught up a little bit as well. Dart has been shown at level 20 for a minute. Baronic was, remember, at level 17. Is now at least caught up to level 19. So the priority targets are going to hit level 20 and be able to upgrade some of those starter items. Everyone on the Oni Warriors has been able to do so. Outside of Baronic, everyone on the Solar Scarabs that has wanted one of their starter items to get upgraded has been able to do so as well. Nothing is guaranteed in this match. The Oni Warriors seemingly were on victory road there for a moment, but the Solar Scarabs able to flip it around and bring this game right back close to even. Just shy of 30 minutes. Oni Warriors with an initial pull on the FG, and they can burn it quickly. You got Shoguns, you got Nika, you got Vote with some crit, Cubo, Fred, Dardes. They can separate out this fight. The Fire Giant melting so quickly as Scary D finds the backline of the Oni Warriors. Ultimate out from inbound. Neilma has a Scarab's blessing on himself. Big shield will put the Kepri right back on the map. Scream won't find the kill. He'll go down, and then Scary D is left alone in the back. As Vote adds a double kill, the Oni Warriors now playing with numbers. And the grouped up members of the Scarabs will be run down. You lose Neilma, but you're at least going to find 3. And Stuart will make 4. Dardes adds another on the end of the fight.
I have to give, again, shout-outs to Neil, and specifically the way the team plays around it. Nothing, as a Kepri, as a support, feels worse than having to ult yourself. You don't get to save a carry, you don't get to make a typically big play, and almost immediately after Neil ults himself, Vote is super low, and like that's enough to make sweat start going down the back of your neck, making sure that you're feeling a little more awkward, a little more anxious, but they are able to collapse really well. Vote once again showcasing that he just has a ton of damage that is available. And we've been seeing a lot more of this in Venom Deathbringer, but getting every single one of these hits, hitting as hard as Vote did during that fight really helped things out. And the Scarabs were separated, right? A couple were trying to fight towards the top of the Fire Giant Pit, the north side of the Fire Giant Pit, and a couple of them were on the south side of the Fire Giant Pit. And they were just spread a little too thin, and that gave way to where the Warriors wanted them to be. Vote able to find a couple more autos onto higher priority targets and get some easier kills. And unfortunately, while they were still able to get some returns on the Scarabs, it's one of those things that just costs a little too much. Again, heavy investment, a lot of relic usage, a lot of ult usage, and I think that their approach to it was okay. It was just the separation during the fight that ends up losing a lot of that for them.
Admittedly, I'm not sure if Scary D had finished his Spectral Armor or not going into that fight, but
that'll help a lot.
He's got it now. Needed it if he didn't have it before. Vote absolutely swinging. Top damage in the game. Scream has pulled the Scarabs along in a lot of these fights as well. Unable to finish off a kill. I think that's a big difference. Where Scream got a lot of damage, but couldn't finish off the priority targets at the beginning of that fight. Baronic has not been allowed to play since starting this game at 3-0. Gone 1 in 5 cents. And again, that's very much a choice by the Oni Warriors to funnel all of that pressure towards the Zeus, not give the Lightning Storm the ability to affect the fight, because Nika can do this. He has found the backline again. Baronic is stunned and stunned and being chased down by Nika. Nika has taken no damage, and Baronic not allowed to play. Cubo Fred pulled back by the Scarab's blessing through death. Dardes uses the Aegis. Will not die as Scary D comes up just short. A double kill for Dardes, and what a dive in the back line by the Warriors.
Walking away with that much health, I mean, look, that leaves me so distraught if I'm the Scarabs here. You lose the Phoenix as well, and with the 5-man advantage with Fire Giant buff giving the healing necessary, plus they had healing chalices, so they're going to be able to get back to a state where they can siege his Phoenix.
Neoma is low and will die, but what has happened to Scream? He is gone before my eyes. How staggered out are these kills going to get? Stewart
still got 20
gets
seconds.
taken low, throws an axe. The Oni Warriors go in towards the Titan. One more stun is all the Warriors needed on the Stewart, but he's able to get back into the fountain. And the Oni Warriors are going to choose to back away, it appears, as Mika will eat the axe. You don't want Vote dying off, not at this pivotal point. And if nothing else, the base of the Solar Scarabs will remain alive, but a bit crippled. Left and mid Phoenixes, both gone.
Honestly, I think it's one of those things. The Scarabs are playing this really well. The Warriors are, in some instances, are just playing a little stronger, and then in some instances, well, so far here, Stewart has been just going massive in these fights. The damage from this Uller, all in like the blink of an eye. Maybe it was because prior to the hi-rez and definitely prior to the Heartseekers, wasn't able to find too much. Like, you had highlighted it, but like beads were on cooldown almost every single time they came back up. They'd have to get burned almost immediately. So it's impressive to see, one, how well this has been going, but now that they're not able to bully him as much, Stewart's been playing this in a way much like that, right? A little bit of damage, but he's still able to jump away, still able to play it safe. Is dishing out a ton, now has the Titan's Bane. This build is going to hit hard at this point. And while they're focusing all of their energy, you had highlighted what now 1 and 6 for Boronic, and since the 3-0 start.
Yep.
But that's fine if the other guy's gonna make up for it. He was 1 and 5. Now he's 5 and 1, right? Like, you've traded off where the carries are. I still think Boronic is a massive threat in the jungle fights.
Yeah.
So the Warriors have to worry about him, because if you now change strategy to kill Stewart and maybe focus him, 3 people dive Stewart, even if you get his relics to get the kill, there's still a Zeus doing AoE damage to your entire team. So it's a rock and a hard place. Where do you go? Which ability damager do you want to deal with? Definitely the guy that does more AoE, but you're still left, not necessarily in a good spot.
Well, damage-wise, Boronic is as big a threat as he's going to get. Looks like defensive item on the mind towards I might not mind like Mantle of Discord or something at this point if I'm Boronic, because just getting run down. But to your point, that's what you need. If Boronic is the one that's being chosen to die by the Warriors, you need Stu to step up. And very much to your point, Stu has in these last couple of fights. Only above the supports in damage is Boronic at this point in the game. And again, that's very much been a choice by the Oni Warriors.
Well, it also says something that the lowest, lately, the highest damage we've not been seeing, like 31,000 from Scream is insane. 15K being the third lowest is nuts for how much they're outputting.
Yeah,
right
you can't understate the impact Scream has had on this game and will need to have on this Fire Giant fight. We're enhanced. Cuvo Fred's around the backside. Everyone's got beads on the Solar Scarabs, so Palau maybe to burn some beads. How about dazzling offensive though? Boronic jumped on, both actives gone. Cuvo Fred back in. Up into the Palau he goes. Boronic, see you later. Scary D, goodbye as well. The Oni Warriors at least grab 2. Inbound will be plucked back in, and the third falls. The Oni Warriors can smell blood gore, and they might just be able to end the game.
Yeah, they don't need the Fire Giant at this point. Phoenixes are still down left side. Even if it respawns, they've got fire minions that are working their way in, so they're going to have a lot of assists, but they need to kill Stewart. Stewart has been a huge asset for them so far. Granted, 2v5, I don't know how much Stewart and Scream can do, but they've got a lot of damage between them.
Bloodbath of a game number 1 here between the Warriors and the Scarabs. My God, Cuvo Fred runs them down. Double kill, what a way to end the game. And Cuvo Fred was a menace in game number 1, the Solar Scarabs. Think back to the early stages of that game, how back and forth we went. There are moments where the Scarabs are massively in control, the fights back and forth. All of it up to question. Too consistent on the engage, too consistent on the dive were the Oni Warriors by the end of that game.
I would argue MVP of that set is Cuvo's chains on the Palau, right? Like everything else, like there's some good saves, good damage, good plays from Vote. There's a ton of good plays from Dardes. But those ults being as consistent as they were, and the beads burn that was being swapped, being able to do 2 Pal-Aos occasionally, or have Dardes go in, get aggressive, force the beads, and then the chains get the pull, the way that the communication and the play was working together there for the Warriors just made it feel so smooth in terms of some of those fights. And I think that's even more credit to the Scarabs to make what was such a well-executed machine look a little rough in a lot of those engagements. I mean, they were by no means shut down by the Warriors throughout that game.
And when we talk about Zeus being immobile and sometimes easy to punish and jump on, watch back that game, because that's what we mean. That's nothing that Barana could have done at some point there. I felt like Cubo Fred was running him down. It's just what happens when the dive is as consistent as it was. The Oni Warriors takes them a little bit, but they grab a win here in game number 1. Scarabs have some life, though. Don't count them out. Game number 2 coming up next.
some balance in my life. I never really put up a fight, and now I'm losing sleep. What if I lost touch? What if I'll never get it right? I try to follow my heart, but I lost it somehow. Wish that someone could say it'll all be okay. Just listen to me as I say. Listen to me as I slow it down. Dreams still yours if you want was to be loved. All I wanted was to be loved. Still yours if you want. Yeah, you do right, 'cause those ups and those downs is what makes it worth it. Slow it down. Still yours if you want. Yeah, right, 'cause those ups and those downs is what makes it worth it.
Hey, say hello to your mother for me.
No.
Okay. Stompa, stompa. Sure they got school.
Greetings.
How you doing? Girl, you got some junk in that trunk. Ooh, hot stuff. Later.
Farewell.
And those certified Billy bumps are made on our very own Alienware machine. So if you want to make great bumpers like that for yourself, for your streams, for anything else that you do, then make sure that you give Alienware a check out. They're one of our sponsors here in Season 9 of the SPL. Make sure to go to smitegame.com/Alienware. Use code AWSmite09 to see what kind of cool offers that Alienware has for you. Check out their social media at Alienware on both Instagram and Twitter. And go to alienwarearena.com. See all the cool stuff that our pros production, and even us here on the desk with these laptops, are getting to use out here in Season 9 of the SPL. Thank you so much to Alienware for coming back one more time for the Smite Pro League. It's J-Mac and Shrelly back on the desk. Game number 1, a very long-winded game, to say the very least, between the Oni Warriors and the Solar Scarabs. Back and forth pretty much the entire way through. But then the one Fire Giant sitting around that 25-30 minute mark when the Oni Warriors are able to essentially wipe the Scarabs at that point and then take it. Felt like that was the major turning point of that game for the Warriors.
Yeah, I think the duo lane, and Stewart specifically, got off to a rough start, right? It was about like 1-5, 1-6, something along those lines. But none of that really mattered because you get to the late game portion, right? None of the early game really stood the test of time. It was pretty net even going into that firefight, as you said. But it just seemed like the double dodgy, Cuvo and Dardes, were just too much. You can't really keep the Zeus alive through it all. And then after the double dodge E comes in, Nika goes to the backline with Dazzling Offensive. And I just think it was just a little bit too much. You want your Zeus to try and live throughout the end of the fight, or at least do a crazy amount of damage in the process. And don't get me wrong, Scream was doing a ton of damage. Stewart eventually did come online and was able to help the team out as well, but it just wasn't enough. And I think it all started from the draft, right? It's so difficult to try and survive, even with a Geb shield, to keep a Zeus throughout the whole fight with 2 Dajis and an Amaterasu dive in the backline.
And that's one thing that, I was even talking about while the picks and bans are happening. We see the double Daji potential. This is before the Ama was even locked in. This is before even seeing what the rest of the Scarabs had gone through. The Hugh Wong got banned away, a god that has a couple of forms of CC immunity to try and get away from these Palaus. And that's why I was thinking maybe Charybdis could have been an option, at least for Baronic. That way you had another way of having multiple forms out. But even when it came down to the end of the game, just the collapse of the Oni Warriors was too much. Baronic didn't get nearly the assistance that he needed to get this game going. Dardas and Cuvo Fred just running the show.
Yeah, you need a lot of assistance there. I mean, that was
pretty much all of it.
That was an Ama ult into a Daji pull, into a Morgan turning into Nemesis, all just to kill the Zeus. And that's all you really have to do, because Zeus is the main source of damage at that point. And Scream is going to have a ton more damage than pretty much everyone at the end here when you do look, because he was going off on this Nemesis. He was doing a crazy amount of damage into the backline, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough dive, just Scary D and Scream getting to the back, because the Zeus wasn't able to just chain lightning. And it's not, I don't think it's any fault of Baronix. I just don't think it was a good pick into that draft, and I just don't think they were able to get the full value out of that Zeus.
Yeah, it was a very harsh matchup for him, and considering his only real backup and safety net was a Geb, and Geb can only cleanse one thing at one time on one singular person. So if inbound uses that stone shield on any other target before that Pal is used, then it all just comes down to Baronic to making sure that he has his purification beads, or at least maybe some fast movement speed to try and juke away from some of those chains. But the Oni Warriors do find the dub in game number 1. Now the Solar Scarabs have to go back to drawing board to try and figure out how to deal with this comp, because this is a style of play that the Oni Warriors have been doing for a long time. Dardas really loves to play this Morgan. We don't get to see it as often, but he's always pairing it with things like Cthulhu, like Daji, back in the day even with things like Robin and Hunbats out here. So if you're the Solar Scarabs, is this Morgan maybe that much of a problem that you need to take this away, or could it just be to take away some of the pieces around it?
Yeah, see, that's the question, right? Because banning Daji would effectively be a ban against Dardas as well, because that limits one of his transformations. We've seen that he doesn't need the Daji. We saw him turn into Nemesis and still have tons of damage there, but I think the Zeus wouldn't have to position as perfectly if you're not up against 2 different powwows.
Oni Warriors and Solar Scarabs, game number 2. The Warriors up 1-0 after their game 1 victory, and they'll start out their bans just the same. Nothing for the Warriors necessarily needs changing. It'll be Mercury and Oleron opposite sides. Solar Scarabs will keep with their same bans from game number 1. Yamoja and Chernobog once again taken away.
Yeah, and it does seem like the Oni Warriors still want to grab that Khepri there, despite the fact that Neil did fall a few times, and that's what you should expect when it is coming to this Khepri. If you are trying to frontline, you want to keep your team alive more than you want to use that Scarab's Blessing on yourself. So, you know, it's not going to be the biggest issue. I still feel like a very strong pick for the Oni Warriors would be that Khepri. And the question is, do the Scarabs say, hey, you know, the Khepri was what the problem was. We couldn't find these kills because those reses were there. Let's take that away and find something new. Or was it the double Daji, the Morgan and Daji combo that was just too much to deal with? Those are both options that the Scarabs have to try and take away. The Oni Warriors, though, they see that Nemesis as a huge issue, and I'm thinking I saw the same.
Yeah, Nemesis will be banned away. Now it's back to the Scarabs for one final ban. Did they take something specific away from the Oni Warriors? Is the Daji the call to ban away to try and kind of double dip in taking down not just Cubo Fred, but also Dardas in a transformation target? Or do they have something else in mind? There's still a lot open. Jing Wei has been a hunter that's still been able to find her way up there. We've been seeing a little bit of Heimdall as well when it comes to there. Ullr's still up and available for either of these teams to take. Not only do both of the mid laners, but both of the hunters on this team really do like that god. So Solar Scarabs with a lot of choices to make right now.
Yeah, I don't think the Scarabs go back to the Ullr, and it really depends, because I think it's so strong in mid, because you're able to just out-pressure most of these mages, but Stewart was not finding the success, and after the game he just had, where he chased Nika from tier 2 tower through the back camps, all the way over, up through mid, and, you know, missed a flurry of abilities there just because Amaterasu has so much movement speed. I just don't think the run back is on the cards, and it will be banned away. So not going to be an option for the Oni Warriors. I imagine the Khepri could be a strong pick here unless Neil wants to go for a different style of play. Either way, the Oni Warriors don't have to think about this one too much. They don't have much to go off of because they just had a convincing win there.
Yeah, they did have a nice win to start out their set in this best of 3 between them and the Solar Scarabs.
The Ullr Scarabs.
The Ullr Scarabs. I was thinking of the Ullr run because it was banned away, but obviously, so we're not going to be able to see that one played out there. The Oni Warriors. Baron is still notably available if solo lane wants to go over towards that mage, so I don't believe we saw any priority towards that in game number 1 between them. Jing Wei for the hunters, as I mentioned earlier. A lot of options out there. The Oni Warriors can take their time. They can use some of this bank to maybe think if they need to refresh some of their strategies. Maybe even take Scary D off this King Arthur. It was very oppressive in that solo lane up against Nika.
Yeah, certainly could be the option. I think really right now the Oni Warriors just want to say, like, we don't want to pick anything that gives away too much about our draft. You know, something that used to do that very well at the start of Season 9 was the Clean It. You could just first pick that very easily and say, hey, we're not telling you too much. We're just picking this Clean It. Could be jungle, could be solo. Doesn't really matter because she doesn't have too many bad matchups. Daji, though, is going to be the answer. Immediately picked in. First pick as well. So the Solar Scarabs don't have to pick these non-CC immune characters into this. They can recognize it right away and say, hey, the Morgan is probably coming soon after the fact. Do we want to grab that and take it away from them? Or just pick into that knowing it's coming?
Effectively act with the Morgan as a ban as well as a pick if they decide to go with it here for the Solar Scarabs. But that's a lot that they have to think into. I mean, the Daji got picked late on in the draft, and then there were still gods being picked up against it that don't particularly work well in that matchup. Jing Wei and Khepri, who is left open, will go over to the Solar Scarabs this time. So the dual lane rounded out early for the Chaos side team.
And so immediately I have to give my favor over the Solar Scarabs because they've picked their mascot. They have the Khepri.
They did.
I see two beetles on my screen right now, and it aesthetically pleases me. But King Arthur is going to be taken away from Scary D here as the AMC is being hovered, possibly for a mid lane pick for Dardes, possibly for an ADC pick for Vote. Either way, going to be a good option here. We usually do see it in the mid lane, but he's a hunter. He can go really wherever he wants, honestly. I mean, nah, King Arthur's there. I was going to say even Nika could probably take him, but with the King Arthur, that's going to be locked in. And Bologna will be a solid answer back as well. You see the AMC, you want to try to get that Scourge up onto these auto attackers and just try and brawl up against King Arthur in lane. I think it's going to be a smart option. Now the Solar Scarabs have a chance to try and take some things away. Don't really have to ban the Morgan anymore because you see that AMC, but if it did get flexed and that was just a bait to try and make sure this pick got through, there's not too many picks right now that the Scarabs hate going into the Daji. Maybe just the Khepri off the top of my head. Forcing that into a beads is a bit annoying.
Ymir will be the next ban by the Scarabs, a god who has kind of risen his way up the meta as of recent. We've seen 4 out of the 5 games that Genetics has played with the Camelot Kings. He's been picking that god. Even Jake has been able to pick that one up, and Inbound as well. So and Neil, so just about everybody in the support roles has been able to find some success on that Ymir. Terra going to be banned alongside that one, so the only Warriors, or at least for Neil, will have to dig a little bit further in the God pool. Fenrir going to be banned away, as that is something that Scream does like to go to try and kind of set the pace for his team on any one of those particular lanes.
Yeah, would be a decent option, but that is going to be taken away, so the only Warriors recognize that one. And Osiris, also a strong option. I was thinking about maybe a Gilgamesh here, just because we've seen him sort of come back into favor, but no CC immunity in the ult. Has to get that Bumbus Hammer online before you really get to that late game power spike. We know Scream likes it and can play it, but hasn't been playing it too much once this newfound meta started arising, and you don't really want to be boxing into Hunter's late game. I think it's going to be a solid pick up against the AMC, but Scream has some thinking to do. Probably will just wait until that last pick. Something we haven't seen out of him in quite time is that Kali as well, but still.
True.
Daji. I think the Oni Warriors have drafted themselves just a strong start here that really doesn't make you want to grab your jungle right away.
I think that is a good point that we haven't seen the Kali despite the fact that it is now available, so it's something that maybe Scream could go to. At least for now, they'll grab Baronic's pick. The Hugh Huang going to be open up, and something that we talked about a lot in game number 1, the pseudo counterplay that it has against Daji, being able to get away from Palau without the use of beads via both his 3rd and 4th ability. So strong pick for Baronic, one that he's found one game of success on as far as a victory, and the other one still some large success in the damage and the KD chart, but maybe finding not so much in an actual W that time around. So something that Baronic has shown that he likes to play, at least to start this phase out. Doesn't reveal too much for the Solar Scarab's hand.
Yeah, and it got the Paul seal of approval, so that's all I'm concerned about. If Paul plays it and says in an interview, hey, I think it's pretty good, his ult's hard to deal with, if you're good with it, then it's good. And that's all you really need right now, especially with a CC immune dash up against Daji. A completely different play style of what the Zeus was, right? You have to position so well. You have to always be watching out for the Palau, holding onto your beads. With the Yu Huang, you can just go, all right, I'm going to jump into the air, whip out some dragons. I don't have to beads this time around, but Fafnir is going to be the option as it looks like Artemis. At first, Shibalanke was hovered, and now Artemis, and then back to the Shibalanke. So that tells me that Vote is looking to get very active in that duo lane with this Shibalanke pick. He's been pretty on point with turning off the lights, making sure his whole team gets the benefit of it. But now, finally what we've been waiting for. What is Scream going to try and bring the team back with here on the jungle? The last pick, and he is hovering the Kali, and
it's a good shout.
It is.
Man.
I mean,
you're good at this.
I was gonna say I am pretty good at my job.
You are pretty good,
first and foremost, but not a great pick into the Daji. But if you can get to late game, you're gonna always just be able to shred through AMC. The Shibalanke is not gonna have the greatest time either. You blink in, stun, and then the Rising Jaguar away, and you just jump to follow that. And more often than not, you're gonna outbox because you win boxing matches when you simply can't die, J-Mac, and that's what Kali does. She simply pops destruction and says, you can't kill me for, until these swords go away.
Now that we've gotten a full look at the Solar Scarabs, the Kali, though traditionally in the past slanted more towards the late game, we've been seeing a lot more activism out of this god when it comes to kind of the mid game and then pushing towards late. Once that 15-minute mark comes around, a couple items online, we typically see Scream get active. And Scream, one of the more unique players on this pick. We've been seeing so many different build paths on her ever since Boots got removed, whether it be kin size rush first, to go into things like stone cutting or serrated or hasten. There's so many different things. Scream as well has kind of had his own unique build that he's run for, which was, I think it was like Crusher, kin size, tier 2 Odibo, and then he finishes it off later on. So a lot of diversity, at least amongst the team, able to kind of keep themselves through the early, mid, and maybe even to the late game. Do the Solar Scarabs have a team that can transition themselves through all three of those phases to face off against the Warriors?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Scream's going to have to get active early, which is something you don't really want to do on the Kali, but more often than not, she's able to find some pretty successful ganks. Playing through Scary D is going to be a smart option, but also a difficult one because you're up against Nika on the King Arthur. There's a lot of safety in that pick, and unless Kali gets some items online, won't be able to shred through all that defense. Expect a Sovereignty that you want to try and shred through, and early on, doesn't really have the tools to do that. I'm curious to see how Scream will itemize this way because the Crusher build is completely out. That's not going to be an option. You want Golden Bow. And just because it is Scream, probably the tier 2 OD bow just to speed up your clear and auto attack damage. But after that, will he go for the more bursty build or just Kins, Silver Branches, shred through as much as possible? Either way, a bit on a timer. You want to make sure you get to late game on this pick. And Scream, he wants to make sure his team gets there as well.
Maybe the same could be said for the Oni Warriors. I mean, double Hunter, you throw a Dodgy in there who's known to do some decent damage with her basics, and then you throw a Fafnir into the mix. Seems like objectives are going to be the name of the game for the Oni Warriors at just about any stage of the game. So when you're looking at the Solar Scarabs roster and talking about how they do have the tools to be able to fight at all points of the game to try and keep this one through, but it does seem that a lot of the heavyweight might be over on towards Scream to try and get some pressure in one of these lanes. Is there a particular lane with this Kali that you would push him towards? Well, actually, I won't even give you the opportunity to do so. We're going to go ahead and throw it right into the game. Game number 2 with Dave and Gore.
Nah, Troy, you're not allowed to talk. Gore and I get to do all the talking around here. Oni Warriors versus Scarabs. Game 2. Gore, do you have something to say right now?
No, what if I just let you talk the whole time?
The entire game? Oh, no, we wouldn't like that. I'd have nothing meaningful.
We wouldn't or you wouldn't?
I think the universal we,
okay,
as a viewer base of Smite would hate it if it was only me.
Oh,
the
okay.
Game.
Okay, you said universal we, and I was trying to think of like a really, really fun like star joke. Something like what Alpha, like the guys on Alpha Centauri really hate it.
They do. I don't even know where that is. But
that's a while away.
Yeah, it's like
couple light years.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's just a stone's throw.
Yeah, it ain't nothing.
Gore, when you lift as many weights as we do, anything's a stone's throw away. Am I right?
That's exactly right, baby.
There we go. All right, Oni Warriors. we get one a game, and we've used both of them at the first 10-second mark of each of the 2 games. Oni Warriors and Solar Scarabs after a grueling game 1. That was a 40, nearly 50 kill game in 35 or so minutes in game number 1. Neither team shying away from fighting up against one another. Now we're going to stick with similarities here. Oni Warriors keep Cuvo Fred on the Dodgy, which provided so much initiation power. But I already like the change that the Scarabs have made in mid. Maybe getting first blood would be a nice change in mid. Cuvo dashes back, but Baranic's got the range. And Mifflin loves talking about levels 1 through 3 as Yu Huang. And that's why Baranic grabs himself first blood for the Scarabs.
Yeah, it's something you can't gloss over. I mean, you have a route that's your clear. If they stand in it, it's going to be great. But that one, that's just Flames of the Phoenix. It looks like a cool ability. It hits like a cool ability, and it hits hard there. And that was incredibly fun. I think, to watch. Maybe not so much for Cuvo, right?
No.
To be on the receiving end. But that's twice now today that we've had a Yu Huang at that level 1, level 2 mark, find a kill, get that first blood in mid. And so, honestly, I think it's something, especially with the meta right now, like that's a good little gold lead that you can now work with.
Inbound going to get chipped away here, but healthy enough at this point in the game that should be just fine to walk out. What's happened here? Another kill is rolled through for the Solar Scarabs. Yeah, Kali, a late game god, right, has already made an impact on this map. Assists on first blood, and then grabs a kill over on solo Nika. Now the second death for the Oni Warriors.
That comment that Kali is the late game god to me, in SPL always has an asterisk on it. And that asterisk is, unless Scream's playing it, right? If Scream's playing it, then that is what you expect, right? Level 3, 1-0-1. I mean, that's magical for him, right? Getting this kind of start, you've got a little bit of gold, a little bit of a lead, which isn't going to be as massive for you overall, but you've now helped out solo lane, you've helped out mid, you've definitely helped out yourself, and you put yourself in a fun position where, in my mind, this Kali can continue looking for this, right? At level 5, now all of a sudden you're able to start diving and start dealing with a little bit more. And so I really do expect to see this Kali kind of continue this trajectory. It's one of the things that Scream does best.
There's enough utility in that kit early to make some waves, and so the Solar Scarabs grab a couple of kills, about 1,000 or so gold lead in the first few minutes of this game. And when we talk about the slower paced nature of some of these games, Gore, it's because oftentimes we won't see massive action in these games until the 10 or so minute mark. So the fact that we've seen a decent bit of it so far, a good pacing now for the Solar Scarabs. And I do want to talk already, of course, first blood for Baronic on the Yu Huang. But how that's going to look different against the Daji as this game goes on. Zeus just so easy to punish, Gore, especially up against the Daji, and a Morrigan that can transform either into the Daji or the Nemesis. And I think the desk wrapped it up well. Didn't love the Zeus pick into what the Warriors had drafted in game 1. I like the Yu Huang a lot better. The safety, just even in that one ability that Baronic is going to have for some disengage, something extra to help out with Bede's pressure. I think a worthwhile change.
I mean, in this case, you get hit by the chain, so you go, cool, I'm going to pop my 3, I'm up in the sky, I'm CC immune, I'm banished from the field technically for a little bit, don't have too much to worry about it, chain's gone, we're golden. If any, forms of CC, King Arthur hits you for a single target stun, if you're dramatically slowed by the bees or you get hit by a Fafnir hammer, then you just beats it away, right? Like at that point, you still have that secondary. So you've got way more options to get away, one of those being at least a small movement, right? You don't move far with that 3. Right. You don't have a lot of time up in the air, but it's enough, right, to kind of, equate it to like a Chang'e to Raven to things like that. A little longer lasting, but being able to make it a little easier for you to survive through those. Going for a very similar start, Book of Thoth. I think it was Thoth into Warlocks, into Starter, into then the Soul Reaver afterwards. So there's a lot of options, I think, for Baronic to be able to go through here. And since you've already kicked things off to a good start, well, normally I'd be talking about, well, you've got like the good lead, things are going well for you.
Scream blinks into the back, stuns Dardes. Stinger out though, and Scream melting down the damage. The lights go out, and
what a
Scream will jump out, but no, he won't. It's a pull back in from Cuvo Fred. What a play. I didn't even see it happen. And then Scream exits stage right, and the only Warriors able to pull back 1.
And what surprises me through all that, first off, Cuvo and Daji, he's embodying the god right now. The chains are hitting way too consistently off the Palau.
They're one and
the
the same.
Making a little bit too many problems for the Scarabs, right? I mean, too often is that going to be cut out. And, we're talking, or at least I'm talking about, oh, man, look, Baronic's going to be so safe. He's going to be fine. He doesn't have to worry about anything. Scream doesn't have beads.
Nope.
That's all. That's that. Scream just does it. So that is an easy target for Cuvo throughout all of that. Beads are now down for inbound, and of course, no beads there for Scary D. So I think that Cuvo is going to be a lot more active. But here's the thing that impresses me more. Yeah, Cuvo's playing out of his mind. Dardes has a level lead. I don't know what Dart. I guess it's because Cuvo died early. He didn't have to split the waves, but he's been able to get a little bit more experience, a little bit more farm. Has now started the Transcendence, and from what we've seen out of the Samus and Cobb, again, Stinger is going to be an incredibly potent ability, but because of how hard he's going to hit, how hard Bees can hit as well. I'm expecting a lot of good plays from Dardes this game.
Yeah, you hope, and the scaling just only happens for this AMC. The Yu Huang as well, though, gets better as the game goes on, and Book of Thoth going to allow some time to stack up, and so Baronic is like that style of build and will stick with it. Important, though, Gore, also, that Nika was a bit behind to start off. Remember, Scream ganks that lane early, puts down the King Arthur, but now Nika's been able to farm up, get Sovereignty, so should be safer in lane and against potential ganks from Scream. Dual lane has officially been left alone here, Gore. And that's a nice boost for Vote. Now, this is a very small thing, right? But if you're going to be chilling in lane for the next 10 minutes or so as one of these hunters, just being able to flip the light switch and have your own impact on the fight like that and grab an assist if fights are happening elsewhere on the map, again, small. Nothing that's game-breaking. But I think that type of global pressure can still be important. It's not rotational pressure, but it's still, I'm helping out my team and affecting these fights in my own way.
It's actually funny because me and you have this experience because Maeve and Paladins and Shibalanke go hand in hand, right? It's just turn off the lights and things like that.
What'd she say? Good night.
Yeah, she just good night in the creepiest way that you've ever heard of what, like a French pickpocket that is going to eventually stab you.
Specific, right?
Yeah. But, having that capability, first off, for him, like you said, I press 4 and I get an assist. I'm on the other side.
Oh.
But, in fights like this, it's huge.
1v1, airstrike seals the deal, and Stewart wins those. One more auto is all Vote needed, but Vote won't be alive to throw it. And Stewart wins the 1v1, nearly there for Vote. And a difference in starts here, Gore. That chin size, a couple extra autos, so important. Vote, it might have been hitting harder, but Stewart was hitting faster.
And honestly, it's that moment. If that ult doesn't come through from Stewart, or if it's a little too slow, that range, that damage, what Vote does there is going to get him a kill. But Stewart's just able to find a little bit more thanks to the ult. Now he's getting a lot of free farm because of it.
And purple buff stolen away. Dardas, though, is rotated over from mid. Scarabs blessing out, so is Destruction. And it looks like that's maybe all she wrote. Yeah, Neil will chase down. Inbound low, cooldown largely refreshed on the Stinger, but Dardas won't throw that one out. And now we actually, Gore, get our first look at how obnoxious this Kali could be later in the game. You get Golden Blade, tier 2 of Odibo. I imagine Scream sits on that one for a while.
Yeah.
Scarab's Blessing plus Destruction.
Yeah.
Because think about it, you get the movement speed anyway from Scarab's Blessing, so Scream is going to be ripping around these fights. And if that doesn't save his life, then he's got a Destruction on the other end. Oni Warriors are going to have a lot to figure out and coordinate.
This Kali has 3 lives. That is just frightening to think about. Because the dive potential that exists there.
Whoa, Nika, speaking of dive, jumped on Scream, still has Destruction. And Destruction will find its way to Nika's front door. Scream, the second kill of the game, and the Kali is rolling. Needed a little pressure over on this King Arthur. Gives Scary D a bit of breathing room. And right on time, the Kali makes their way to the right and adds another one for the Scarabs.
And just being able to find pressure like that. Again, you had highlighted it, I had mentioned it, but having a little bit more pressure for Scary D after getting that second blood kill, and then Nika still being able to take a little bit of a lead over there, that's going to help equalize the lane a little more, allow this Bologna to survive a little bit longer. King Arthur's still a bully, despite the fact that it's a Sovereignty and a Bluestone only as of right now. So I think this is going to be a good build, but honestly, I'm having flashbacks. Last time around, Scarabs have a really good start like this. Granted, more of those kills ended up on Baronic than they did on Scream. But you were equalizing the lane, you were shutting down Nika a little bit, finding control, most places. And then it was the team fights in between that ended up changing a lot of things. This time around, though, I think it's actually better that it's Scream, because Khepri has a marked target. Saving Baronic and Stewart would be nice. Saving Scream's even better. So if Scream doesn't have ult, then that's a dive that you can make.
Neoma will transform here as a dive again, Gore. You're really on point with saying the word dive and then some type of dive-in happening. This time it was towards Neo. He'll de-transform. And so ultimate used to just buy a little bit of time. Not super worried about it. I don't know if the Oni Warriors are going to be grouping and fighting with that Fafnir ult anytime soon anyway. So it is scale time now for Vote. As Stewart wins the 1v1 earlier on in this lane, gets the chin size. Looks like sticking in that tree, Gore. Could be Xe, could be Aussie.
Yeah.
Sticking with it is Stewart, realizing that melting down the health bars of Neoma, of Nika, going to be very important throughout this game. So Vote maybe just needs to hang back for a bit, get that Transcendence stacked up, and although we know Vote, not one to shy away from taking some of those fights.
Yeah, we saw it earlier, and specifically looking at builds. That's a good stun. If anybody had stepped up with Neil, that could have been something, but I think that the build, this is where it gets very interesting, because I think what you're looking at for Stewart, if it goes Aussie, then that's like I'm going to call it selfish, but like keep yourself alive, hit harder, win your fights, and do better for yourself.
This is free, by the way.
Yeah, but if he goes Executioner, I'm actually a big fan of that idea, because now all of a sudden, not only do you hit harder, but the Kali hits harder and the Bologna hits harder. Like, those are two people I would love to enable on my team. Yeah. So if I'm at the other side, I'm thinking that I want a Witchblade. I'm starting to think maybe I want a Horrific to deal with some of the attack speed that's going to be coming out their way. Some Shells would be very nice to help maybe get some not necessarily blocks, but what is 50% auto reduction. Having things that are going to help you in a lot of those little regards are going to potentially shut down, or at least help shut down, some of the power curves of the Scarabs. Whereas for them, it's not too far-fetched to see a Bologna pick up a Shogun's Kusari, things like that. Empowering that and really leaning heavy into the fact that Scary D, Scream, and really ideally Stewart here are going to be heavy-handed auto attackers, while Baronic then gets to kind of free cast as the mainstay magic damage.
Well, Gore, for those who are listening but not watching, which is the opposite of how I imagine most people would be doing
watching and not listening.
When I'm casting. Right?
And they have that badge now in the Twitch chat where they can show you if they're not watching, or if they're watching on mobile if they have it muted.
Wait, really?
Like some people, well, you have to enable it, but it is there.
Got it. Didn't know
It hurts my soul every time I see someone watching with the sound muted.
Well, if you are listening but not watching, the most calm first rotation of objectives just went down on the map. The Solar Scarabs walk up to Gold Fury, knock it down, and no Oni Warriors were even on the left side of the map. And then the Oni Warriors casually walk over to the Pyromancer, grab that one for themselves, and keep things somewhat interesting as far as gold goes. So, as we take a quick breather here, in the first 12.5 minutes of this game, the Solar Scarabs have pulled themselves a nice gold lead core. Pacing has slowed down a little bit. Hard to keep up with the level of pacing that Scream was bringing out early on. Need some time to sit back and farm up, but hit some important power spikes. As I mentioned, Golden Blade and the Tier 2 Odie Bow, you're going to get the passive online with Tier 2. But now the chin size for Scream as well.
Yeah.
So you're looking at double chin size, which was the meta for a little while.
That's going to be really solid.
Yeah, going to be solid, helping out, maybe kill someone off like Neoma. Baronic disengages here, and so does Cubo Fred. But Scream is engaged over in mid. Lights go out, and Scream looking for the Daji, and Scream will get the Daji. Scream will help out Stuart in knocking down Neoma, and the Scarabs well executed fight in mid. And that's another 2.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to describe it. Just well executed. Look, a lot of the items I just mentioned earlier, like the Shoguns, well, first off, now one bot there for the Fafnir, but I believe going to be the next thing here for Scary D. But I'd mentioned a Witchblade, I'd mentioned a Horrific, and we're starting to see those from Scary D. When Scary D's in the fight, this Kali's going to be frightening. And specifically, the other side, not so much from Dardes and Vote. Vote's not rotating for that one. It's going to get a Tier 1 tower, so that's going to be helpful. But you're not getting a lot of pushback from the mid laner. Cuvo goes deep, but those items are going to be just as helpful up against someone like Cuvo as they are some of these auto attackers and the Hunters. So I think that the Scarabs are playing this. They're itemizing well. They're thinking about the way that they're engaging this. And honestly, I like seeing the kills go where they go. I think that this Yu Huang is going to hit really hard, whether they're getting the kills or not, right? If Baronic is 5-0 or 0-5, I think that at a certain point you're going to be into the same spot where you're going to have those items and be hitting nice and hard, although it helps not to be that far behind, right? Whereas for Stuart, and specifically for this Kali, you want to feed the hot hand. Give this Kali as many kills as possible because you know that Scream is going to be able to do a lot with it. Same thing for Stuart. Stuart, last game, the end of it, the last like 10, 15 minutes, was on fire. So absolutely, let Stuart get some of this, get that farm online, get the Wind Demon, and feel the power that is going to come in these boxing matches.
Big play opportunity for Vote here to stay alive, and he will do so. As Stuart had found half of his health bar. Neoma a bit late to the party, but just confirming that a dive will not be happening. Stuart continues with attack speed core. It ends up being Executioners into the Wind Demon. So strong there. On the flip side, triple Transcendence for the Oni Warrior. So maybe we expected, or should have expected, a bit of a slower start to this game for the Onis. They need to stack up some of those items. And a diversification of the next few items after those Transcendences. Transcendi. As a Hydras. Transcendencers as Hydras for Cubo Fred. Brawler's Beat Stick, little anti-heal for Dardes. And of course, Atalantis Bow for Vote.
And I like it because each one of those feels like it fits, the kit that they're playing or the style that they should be playing, right? Cubo Fred is going to go in, he's going to pop some abilities, and then go for the auto attacks, things like that. Dardes going to be a little more heavy-handed in the abilities. Bees, again, hits really hard. Stinger's one of the best things about AMC's kit right now because of all the prot shred that it gives you. So you want something that is going to then make your abilities do a little bit more for your team. So it's going to spread throughout that. But that being said, you're still a Hunter, right? So you kind of get the best of both worlds. Juggle what best you can.
Up goes Cuvo. Down he crashes into what should be a stun. And it's there from Scream. Doesn't matter. Scream's got the damage, and Scream's got his fourth. Kali tearing through the Oni Warriors right when the Oni Fury spawns as well. Could be an easy objective for the Scarabs.
That was a lot of damage in such a short amount of time.
That was simple, huh?
Yeah, I think the Scarabs, again, the way they're playing this Fury is actually maybe the most important because so far a lot of this has been clean. I think their engages are good. The way that they're finding the kills specifically for Scream have been great. That's a big shutdown, though.
That is a simple collapse by the Oni Warriors. Inbound as well, and Neoma transforming. The Fury has been dropped, not killed, but dropped back to the Oni Warriors.
Oh, no.
And that is an overextension from Scream. How costly of a mistake. Not devastatingly yet, but getting the second kill of the game onto the Kali and giving the Fury to the Oni Warriors, and now some farm on the Scarab side of the jungle. Look at how the gold has changed, Gore. It was about 2,000 gold in the lead, and now the Oni Warriors are ahead, despite being down in kills 7-2. Now it's small.
Yeah.
So literally 75 gold. But 2.3k experience, and you're going to get a Pyromancer. Big fumble from the Solar Scarab.
That was a 2,000 gold lead for the Scarabs that has now just been completely eradicated and then some. The Warriors picking it up. Because here's what the Warriors get off of that. Not only do they get a huge bounty kill on Scream because he was 4-1, on top of that they get the Fury. On top of that, they strip away some of the jungle. This is stuff you mentioned. They also make sure that their Obelisk is full, so now they have a Trebuchet waiting on that. They get the Pyromancer on top of it. They take one small kill and they turn it into so much for them in their favor, and so much that they now technically can control the pace of this game. Scream is still a huge threat. I think that a lot of the experience is still going to be a big problem to deal with for the Warriors here. They can't just necessarily run away with this. But if that Fury and that fight goes the way of the Scarabs just prior to the Warriors kind of ruining their day, we're talking about game 3 at this point.
Yeah,
now,
agreed.
It's in anybody's hands.
Scream initiated on, has Destruction. Scarab's Blessings on the right side of the map as well. Into the Destruction goes Scream, but
they
Scarab's
used them both at
Blessing
once.
stacked on top of it. Scream gets one heal. Destruction times out. Cuvo Fred up into the powwow. Baronic has beads, will use beads, and will walk out of the initiation from Cuvo Fred. Stewart goes up and over in the back line. Scary D chasing down Neoma, but Vote is rotated over from the left side of the map. Stewart has melted through, but the Aegis stays alive. Vote will remedy that on the back end, though, and it's up to Vote now to deal the big damage as Dardes is left running. Scream back from the grave on a killing spree, and all but a deicide for the Solar Scarabs, as Dardes will make 5.
Yeah, it's just a matter of time. He gets the 3-piece as well. 8, 2, and 3. Look, here's the bad that happens for the Scarabs. You have the Scarab's Blessing, and you have the Destruction popped at the same time. That feels like it should be the end of that fight. But Scream doesn't die. And that is where their resurgence comes back. I think, getting a kill onto Stewart, that's nice, but everybody else is just safe enough. You get a lot from the Yu Huang, a lot of presence.
Whoa, Nika's back.
Nika's back,
and Scaredy is low. 1 kill to Nika, 2 kills to Nika. Baronic still in the FG pit. He will have to glide away as Scream sticks around
I don't know
with
if
the
Scream
FG.
wins this fight.
Scream close to having Destruction back. 18 seconds, he won't get it. Scream dies as well. Oh no, it's devastating. It's heartbreaking for the Scarabs. They get a deicide. Nika gets 2, the Fire Giant gets 1, and we are right back to where we started.
This is the second phase that started with players that have died to a big objective. Granted, Fire Giant got buffed. I don't have any excuse for the Pyromancer deaths at the beginning of phase 1. But, I mean, that just hurts. You had mentioned the Destruction. If it comes up a second earlier, then Scream's able to get that. The team still gets FG. It's only on 3, but that still feels good. Nika, I didn't think that was going to work out. I'm going to be honest with you. I was ready to talk through that fight because I didn't think too much of it, but they were so low, and his presence was so massive.
Think back to how much talking we were doing while the Fire Giant was just slowly going. Like, we had a conversation. I didn't even realize how long it was going to take to burn that down, and then suddenly Nika's on my screen, and I have no idea that he was going to initiate back in on that fight. Gets 2 kills, delays the FG. Scream ends up dying on the back end. It would have been icing on the cake if Nika were able to get the triple. But you are able to keep the Fire Giant on the map. And if that Gore really feels like a second lease on life for the Oni Warriors here in this game. Still Scarabs feeling comfortable, but the Oni Warriors at least keep the Fire Giant on the map.
I think, if FG goes down there, it's not the end of the world for them because there's 4 towers standing, right? So, like, you're going to lose a lot of gold. You're going to fall behind, and admittedly, that just makes Scream a lot scarier. But now, you should realize and recognize where your fight needs to be. A lot of this is, can we burn beads on Kali, and then can we kill the Kali? Like, let's just get Destruction, get Scarab's Blessing, get the beads, kill the Kali, and then the fight becomes a lot easier.
Uh-oh, we are going to fight here over the FG.
Gotta kill the
Second
Kali.
chance now for the Solar Scarabs. Daji chains out, beads get burnt, Scream pulled into the powwow, and now disengage as a massive ultimate from Scary D starts off this fight. The Solar Scarabs may not have gotten the last Fire Giant, but they've got a real good look at this one. though the Oni Warriors keep 3 on the map. It was a miracle initiation from Scary D, and a reinitiation now from Nika as the chase down begins, and the Oni Warriors considering a dive.
It's just it's CC right now, right? You've got a King Arthur. There's not a lot to lock them down.
Wow.
Honestly, between the King Arthur and the Fafnir on their own, you don't really have a lot of lockdown. So a lot of opportunities for the Scarabs to get away, and they have some safe picks, right? We've mentioned the Scarabs Blessing, we mentioned the Kali, but Yu Huang with his 3, Stuart with just being Jing Wei. Look, I mean, Baronic doesn't burn either of his relics, neither does Stuart, and Inbound keeps the beads. So, you're putting some pressure on people like Scream, and you're finding a little bit of it. But I think that they're showcasing the lack of CC that is going to be there for the Warriors consistently, right? Like, it's a lot of really good things if they hit. It's just that's such a big if at the beginning of a fight and in all of this hectic manner. I think that the Scarabs are playing this incredibly well. They're 3,000 gold, 4,000 goldish up, but they're able to find these fights, and they're finding them consistently. I mean, Baronic's undying. Scream is might as well be undying in a lot of these last few fights.
Cubo Fred blocks
could be a big pick.
the abduct. Yeah.
Oh,
That stays alive. I mean, if that's me, I'm walking forward for sure. My team is dying and losing the game, but the Oni Warriors a bit safer. Inbound is low. All Inbound needs, though, is the Scarab's Blessing. As long as he is in range to drop that ultimate, Inbound can have its impact on the fight. That is gross damage from Baronic, though. Evaporates Neilma as Cubo Fred has found the backline. Where's he going to go, though? Pal out only sends him as far as Stuart. Knock up, no good, as Stuart dashes forward, and Cubo Fred blinks off to the other side. Can he dodge out the route from Inbound? That might be the ending of this chase. Cubo Fred makes it back behind the tower, and movement speed good enough, and it's only Neilma who dies.
I mean, that's still a huge win for the Scarabs. They keep a lot of the big ultimates that are necessary. They can move forward. At least Pyromancer. I don't know if you can confidently pull an FG right now. Yeah, so you have to play it carefully. And again, it's this weird balance. I think the Scarabs are playing these fights just blanket statement better than the Warriors. But I think the Warriors are making slightly bigger plays in certain circumstances that are keeping things balanced. But even more than that, farming just a little bit better. Yeah, the Scarabs have the lead, but a lot of that has been from these objectives and not necessarily from this neutral farm. Almost every time we've seen the Scarabs get, 3,000-4,000 ahead, within a couple of minutes, the Warriors somehow dwindle it back down to that 2K mark. So really, I'm looking at what exactly the Scarabs can do, and it's just a fight like that gets a little bit more. If you kill off one person that's not Neil, or one extra person outside of Neil, then that Fire Giant is mostly yours, or you can force a fight from the Warriors that they're not going to feel comfortable taking.
Gore, I think I've aged like 12 years in this game. This has just been so stressful.
The wildest 25 minutes that
I know. And game 1 was just as unbelievable. This has had all of the drama as well. We just need an objective steal to give this game a little bit of anything. Fire Giant low, and Fire Giant
they're just going?
Taken by the Oni Warriors. They commit, and they get.
Neil's
and
low.
now Scream on the back line as Neilma is left low. Cubo Fred finds the first kill on a Baronic. Nobody from the Oni Warriors is dying off. They've all stayed alive. But Scary D's got something else in mind, and so does Scream. But red health bars across the Solar Scarabs camp, and Cubo Fred's already got 2. Waiting on the cooldowns. Could be 3, could be 4. If the dash is there, Scream channeling the back. Destruction down. Cubo Fred's got damage onto Scary D. But there's no collapse from the Oni Warriors. 2 for 2, but the Onis get fire.
And a lot of that, I think there was just a brilliant play. Look, you've got a Divine Ruin here on Neil, the Brawlers. Scream gets the heal. He gets the kill, but it does not budge his health bar enough. It's enough to get out of there alive, and they get the reset. But with the Fire Giant there, and with them having to fall back the way they did, pushed out the way they do, the Warriors can make up some really good ground here with this Fire Giant buff, and maybe force a fight from the Scarabs. I mean, I don't want to fight this 3-on-3, honestly. If I'm them, I don't feel tinky enough.
Yeah, I don't think I do either. We grab tier 2 and head on out. Won't even get the tier 2 tower as the wave wore down. I don't know if Scream is going to try to chase this one. All right. So Scream is at 10-3, as we expected the Kali to be when you get Destruction and Scarab's Blessing in your team. Tends to be the case, but Scream has just not let off the gas. Remember, this started early, and it kept rolling. But what a gutsy call from the Oni Warriors to be at a gold deficit, to see the Solar Scarabs in range, and you still stick on the Fire Giant, you stick with it, and you don't pull off of it. The Oni Warriors coin flipped that And luckily
to
it
the
landed in
truest
there.
extent.
Right. I mean, that was low, and it felt like it hung out pretty low there for a minute.
And
was
honestly,
just one last
Baronic,
auto.
like, I think anybody, like, Baronic's maybe the one who could hit it the hardest, right? Like, he's got the best damaging abilities in the game.
As far as burst, yeah.
Realistically, like, Flames of the Phoenix or anything like that could have potentially stolen that one away. I think it's impressive even more. Not only do they get the FG, but killing Baronic towards the beginning of that fight and just making things a little more awkward for the Scarabs. I think getting rid of that damage was very helpful for them. Granted, I still think the Kali is like the thing to try and focus down, but you've managed to really reset and change the pace of this game.
Well, Gore, what a difference God Pick makes, right, for Baronic. I mean, a little bit of extra safety under similar initiation from the Oni Warriors is the difference between starting 3-0 and ending 4-7 in game 1 and kind of chilling at 4-0, 4-1 this entire game. So Baronic, with a little bit of extra safety in that kit, has found the impact. 14,000 damage so far on the Yu Huang. Needless to say, Scream up top at 20,000 damage, but just behind is Cubo Fred, who has scaled up nicely on this AMC. It looks like Gore, the Fire Giant that is halfway back to respawning, so a couple minutes left maybe on the buff. Looks like the Oni Warriors aren't going to try to force the issue. Really only that tier 2 tower could be likely on the right. Seems like now you're in, get some gold, ward up.
Yeah.
Take a deep breath before we maybe fight one more time.
The big thing about that FG and the way you've worded it is best. The Warriors were down. The Warriors, if they lose that FG and lose that fight, the game's over. Now they're in a position where gold is within 1,500. You're easily going to be able to make that up. Honestly, you just go knock down that tier 2 and you've got it, right? You're back to even. So what they've managed to do here is get some more power spikes. I see an Envenomed Deathbringer. I see a Serrated Edge. I see now the Spirit Robe and the Silver Branch Bow. A lot to further push them into a fighting condition where they can take on the Scarabs and feel confident. They don't have a gold lead.
Whoa! What happened to Neil?
Oh my God!
He's gone! He's gone, Gore. I don't know where he went. He's in the grayscale for 45 seconds. Good news is, given my...
He'll respawn before the Fire Giant
Yeah, I
comes
have a
back.
very bad understanding of pie charts, but that looks like more than a minute. More than 30 seconds left before Neomod's respawn.
I think each...
Oh my God, Neil's had a rough game. I didn't realize
Each
he's 0-5.
chunk is a minute and 15 seconds.
Uh-oh, but you don't want to lose Dardez, because Vode is close by here as well. Dardez just backpedaling, trying to do some damage. Scary D in on the dive. Nika here to help out as well, but at the Solar, Scarabs overextended. Scary D's got Scarabs Blessing on top, Destruction down, but Aegis waits it out, Scream, full heal. Gets the kill back, but Cubo Fred runs him down. Ends up being a 2-for-1 trade. Dardez and Vode down, but Scream is as well.
Also, I lied to you there. It's 5 minutes divided by 8, not 10 minutes divided by 8, which is what I did.
I was going to say, that's like a 10-minute respawn
that's way too long.
Giant.
Yeah, so either way, it's just good fights like that. Now, you actually have to be worried. Guess what? Vote Dardez, you're going to respawn either with the FG or right afterward. So that's a significant... Oh, yeah, no, it's way afterward, honestly. They've got 30 seconds to play with in a 3v4 for the Scarabs. That's worthwhile for Scream's life to be able to set this up. Although you do still have Cuvo. Cuvo, might be 2-5, but I think has been making some pretty big plays with Nika and Neil here. There's a lot of steal potential for the Warriors available on this FG.
Cubo Fred behind the Scarabs. Nika close up front. That's a tanky
I'm
King
surprised
Arthur.
they're fighting this.
And this is a difficult objective to burn down. Stewart left alone with Cubo Fred.
Oh
Nika
my
on the
God.
back line. The Solar Scarabs abandoned their ADC.
Baronic?
In hopes of diving themselves. Nika now abducted. Cubo Fred,
Cubo.
watch out for the Hydra's proc. It's going to hit like a truck onto Baronic's health bar, but it doesn't reach. An ultimate from Nika. Grabs a double for the King Arthur, but Cubo Fred traded out in exchange. Nika still got more on his mind, but watch out. The carries of the Oni Warriors back and respawn.
That's fine.
And Nika can now lock down Scary D.
Yeah, all they need is a stun, a setup, something to lock him
Scream
down.
is back though, too.
But I think that it's more important that Dardez and Vode are back than it is for Scream. I think Scream's massive, and if he finds them isolated here, that could be a big deal. But a good stun from Nika, you kill one of these two, S-named players on the Solar Scarabs, and you will very easily get that Fire Giant. Neil's coming right back up, and it seems like with Stewart spawning in a little less than 10, they're just going to lay in wait. Oh no, Vode, this is dangerous.
Scary D has started up the enhanced Fire Giant, and Scream has jumped on Dardez, who didn't have either of his actives. And Nika now teleports back into the fight. Scream is low, but has Scarabs' Blessing. Scarabs' Blessing is procced, and Nika doesn't die, but he will as Scream jumps in, gets the double kill. Scream gets the triple. The Kali's been swinging from minute number 1, and now 32 minutes in, the story is the same at 14-4. Scream is relentless.
I mean, look, the Warriors have a better map state, but these kill timers, these death timers, oh, they're working against them here. This should be the easiest Fire Giant the Scarabs have had to get. Granted, I guess it was a lot of work prior to getting the FG.
What about us, Score? I've been working hard for this.
Should be just fine. Yeah, no, you had to go 36 kills in 32 minutes. There's been a lot going on.
God.
And I've got bad news for you, Dave. I'm starting to feel the winds shifting towards a game number 3 here.
That's good news if it continues to be as competitive and back and forth as we've gotten.
Maybe bad news for your vocal cords more than anything.
Hey, it's the last day of the week, so I can.
Yeah, you can rest for a couple days.
I've already decided. I'm getting Chipotle. I'm probably not allowed to say that. I'm sorry, everyone.
Not a sponsor, but you can be if you want to be.
Yeah, right. I'm going home.
Reach out to us.
And I'm going to sit around and play video games for hours. So I can.
Well, then you're just going to be yelling more. You won't be able to speak tomorrow.
No, I'm playing single-player games.
Oh, never mind. You'll be fine.
I don't have the mentality for anything.
You'll self-berate only in your head, never vocally.
You idiot. You got your Pikachu made bad calls in the gym battle. I'm unsure. All right, Oni Warriors. Now they're looking down all 5 members of the Solar Scarabs with enhanced Fire Giant and a 6,000 gold lead and an Oni Fury to boot. But Gore, if we've learned anything in this set, is that nothing is easy. They know where Cubo Fred is. Pings drop down on the Daji, and nobody is going to step forward to clear out this wave. I hope someone does, though, because that'd be fun. But nothing has been easy between these two teams, Gore.
I think Scream can see him.
Yeah, no, there were pings from the Solar Scarabs on Cubo Fred a moment ago.
Yeah, they're pinging him again.
Over a ward
oh wait, they were gonna try to 1v or 2v1 him.
2v1. Well, they would have won. They would have won that 2v1. Now it's up to the Oni Warriors to keep things interesting at 34 minutes in. But slow goings on this grouping from the Solar Scarabs, just slowly knocking down some of these towers.
And this is where I'm a little worried for them, right? You've got this Fire Giant buff, and you've still got a few minutes on the power play, right? But you're definitely needing to, I think, get a Phoenix here to feel very confident. I think that we're getting to the late game state. I mean, look, most people have 6 items. Witchblade, you've got upgraded relics there for Neil Ma. So you're really getting into these late game scenarios. Can now upgrade his starter at 17. The towers are going to be gold, and it's going to get you a massive, like, over 10k lead. But I think you need to get a Phoenix to feel comfortable with the pace of this game. And if you can get a big team fight, you just win. If you get a Phoenix, you guarantee the next FG.
Yeah, at this point, it's all about map state. Gold and all that fun stuff starting to matter a little bit less. Supports able to upgrade their starter items. Ultimate down from Vote. Smart disengage from the Scarabs. But you can see how this X-Ball swings. And build finishes with a chin size as well. So Vote is going to be able to deal some serious damage to the front lines. Nika able to deal some damage to Scream, who is into the destruction.
Oh, if you can get that kill, it's so massive.
And whittling away the help arm. Niku dodges it out. The Powwow brings Scream back on the other side of this fight. Now it's Scary D. Phoenix diving Nika, but Vote is close by as well. Nika dies, but the Phoenix doing some serious work. Vote doing so as well. Scary
you gotta
D,
get this.
Way too tanky, and Vote not able to finish off the kill, but Vote has got to get back. He's got to defend his Titan. His Titan is tanky. Vote does not have his ultimate, but he's got auto attacks, and the Solar Scarabs won't roll the dice.
That was close. They still have a little bit of time. Look, you can take a breather. You've got minions. You've got the regen. You have ults and damage. And now, yeah, with that teleport coming through from Scary D, you've got a nice, healthy tank to lead the way.
Spectral Armor is worth its weight in gold
right
now.
What can you do?
Is not going to be able to deal the damage to Scary D, but maybe everyone else. Vote has got to backpedal away, and in 35 minutes, the Solar Scarabs finally get it done and send us to a Game 3.
There are too many Scarabs players there to highlight. I think Baronic does a fantastic job. I think Inbound does a fantastic job. I think Scary D does a great job. But you've got to talk about the Kali. I think every single one of those, the leads they have, the way they play, and the everything about the last 20 minutes of the game is built up off of Scream's early game. Literally lifting with First Blood, lifting the mid lane, elevating over the solo lane with 2 kills on Nanika. Those first 10 minutes, 15 minutes from Scream set them up for the success that they have. That leads to really overwhelming team fights. Scream's success alone was enough to really help level that playing field. But then you get great plays from Baronic, great plays from Scary D, and great plays from the duo lane that really allow them to find everything necessary, whether it's saving plays, damage, what have you.
Gort, something about these two teams over the last couple of years of SPL where they're always closely matched. Regardless of the trends of the teams as of late, they always find a way to compete with one another in a Game 3 to end the weekend. You don't want to miss it. Game 3 between Scarabs and Warriors coming up next.
I can't believe that you came into my life. You made me feel again. Now it's my turn. You say you've always been a little bit shy, but I can put an end to your fears. Let me show you a place where you gon' wanna move your feet until they start to bleed. DJ, take it away. Tonight is all for you and me. So baby, spin and let the music begin. I know you feel it within, so go ahead and just spin for me. Won't you spin? Don't let the doubt in you win. I know you feel it within, so go ahead and
back, Smite fans. Game number 2 of this best of 3 of the Oni Warriors and the Solar Scarabs has concluded, and this time the Solar Scarabs are able to find themselves a victory. Back and forth throughout all of the early game, and a lot of players to really kind of highlight here in this matchup in particular on the side of the Solar Scarabs. I'm joined by Trelly to help me break down a few of those out because probably immediate standout is definitely going to be Scream on that Kali breakout. Lights out performance, really able to break lights out, break out, everything you can think of.
Yeah, the Kali looked very solid. Obviously, it was able to get off to the whole team off to a great start. I want to highlight Scary D as well, very high in the back line, just making sure to be as annoying as possible, and that's exactly what you want from your solo laner. And Baronic, man, it looked like a fight where the Oni Warriors would come back in, they had a solid answer back, and then there's just some massive burst damage out of nowhere, and that would be Baronic on this Yu Huang as well. So just great team play. You got to give credit to Inbound. Great stat line there on this Khepri, 0-2 and 20, making sure sometimes the Destruction and the Scarab's Blessing were overlapping. That's a bit of a communication error, but that's one of those things where it's just like you'd rather use it than not use it, right? You'd rather use the ult and say, oh, I thought you were going to Scarab's Blessing me. I thought you were going to, either way, the Scream was able to survive, and that's what you want. You want the 40,000 damage out of your Kali because she was constantly being revived or just defying death. And, it's not to say the Oni Warriors were not fighting back, because they were. That one time when it looked like the Scarabs were just going to get Fire Giant for free, Nika teleports in, gets 2, should have got the triple. Baronic gets away with 1 HP, and then Scream dies to Fire Giant after the fact, and that just delayed this game. But I imagine after that happened, Scream was pretty upset, said, you know what? I'm not letting this Fire Giant go. It killed me once. I'm going to make sure we kill it next time. And they did. Just great game played by the Solar Scarabs. A back and forth game, but still very commanding.
We'll jump right into picks and bans for game number 3, or Oni Warriors and Solar Scarabs. And it was funny. I walked by Scream in the hallway, and he looked at me and goes, did you see how much player damage I did? And I said, no, but I know it was a lot. And he said, yeah, I just forgot to take a look. Well, hopefully he'll get another look at it later on. 41,000 out of the Kali. And I got to highlight, even though that Baronic wasn't also top in the charts, his use of the dragons in that ultimate was phenomenal throughout the majority of that game. Able to push people into objective pits, especially the ones around the Fire Giant, utilizing it over the wall to bring players in and allow for Scream to be able to go through. So yeah, sure, Scream had the top damage and the most kills out there, but everybody on the Solar Scarabs really rallying around each other. And now, this is where the games get interesting. This is where picks and bans can sometimes get interesting. I say sometimes because for now, not a whole lot of adaptations between these two teams. The big one for the Oni Warriors is everybody was banning Scream's Kali away. They're like, okay, he's pretty good at this, and then teams kind of forgot about it for a little while. Scream didn't play it for some time. Now we get to see another performance, and I don't think he's ever going to get this god again.
Yeah, I mean, we're back to the days where people are sending 6 bans Scream's way, with 5 bans, then also picking a jungler for yourself. And Scream still last picking his jungle and not caring. But the Oni Warriors are going to ban 3 of them and then say, hey, we want the Khepri for ourselves inbound. Not going to be able to get that one. The Solar Scarabs cannot pick their mascot this game. But, Scream can perform on lots of different jungles. The Kali is one of those characters that just defies death and gets very annoying in the backline. Not a lot of counterplay per se once the destruction gets popped. So I understand the Oni Warriors taking that one away. Scream's going to have to go back to the drawing board and figure out what he wants to try and set up for his team this time around. But the Solar Scarabs now have the option. What is going to be available? Stewart had a decent game on the Jingwei. Didn't have a fun time in lane, but did actually get I was going to say, he did have a fun time in lane, actually, because he did get that solo kill up against Vote. It was close, and it was a one auto could have changed the outcome of that fight. But either way, Stewart was just fine on the Jingweis. But Lona is going to be the option, getting Scary D on something that, sits in lane, doesn't have too many bad matchups. It's just an annoyance to deal with if you want to pick an ADC, and Jingwei will be locked in as well.
Yeah, something safe for Stewart over on that left side of the map, something aggressive for Scary D on the right side of the map. Now the Oni Warriors, and it comes down to a question of, do they go with this dodgy yet again? It worked in game 1, it did okay in game number 2, but it really felt like the difference was that dodgy had a good target to pick on in game number 1 between Uller from Stewart, and since no CC immunity, and Nemesis out of the jungle, no CC immunity, and a Zeus in the mid lane, no CC immunity. So great targets for the dodgy, but we get into this second game, and it felt like there wasn't really any target that this dodgy and the Cubo Fred was able to go with, especially when you're going up against the Yu Huang, which we were talking about in the double matchup in that instance, is not great because he can immune out the Palau in 2 different ways without purification beads. If I'm the Oni Warriors, I may be looking to either take or potentially ban this Yu Huang away from the Solar Scarabs just to get Baronic off that pick.
Yeah, certainly could be an option. I don't think the Powwow was hitting very much. It was just so the damage after the fact. So Cubo was still able to find tons of DPS that game. Even if the pulls weren't coming in, he was forcing relics and then still just getting so much damage with the Hydra's procs, the Trickster Spirit, and the 1,000 cuts, that sort of thing. So I don't think it's going to be a terrible pick ever, but the Oni Warriors need to decide right now if they really want to put the respect on it. And it looks like they are going to grab the Kalina here. More often than not going into Nika's hands, but there still is the option that could be in the jungle. And since they have the Morgan, now they have 2 Kalinas, or, you know, they have 2 different options, whatever they want to go for here. If that is a solo lane pick, they still could have a great transformation in the jungle they want to grab for Cuvo Fred later on.
Solar Scarabs with one final pick before we go into the second wave of bans. Typically, the Scarabs have been a team to wait for Baronic's pick at the tail end of the game, see kind of the majority of what the Oni Warriors or any other team has been able to draft, whether they wait for that to be a 5th pick or if they pick something that can kind of flex between the jungle or the mid, things like that, Poseidon, and wait to see what the entirety of that draft is before they pick his god. Nox going to be something over for inbound in the support role, so Solar Scarabs will elect to wait to see what Scream and Baronic are going to pick up.
I love that here. I think that's a solid matchup in the Khepri every single time. If you ever just see a Khepri, Nox is always going to be a decent answer back. Trying to silence out the Khepri right when a Scarab's Blessing would come through. Most people aren't ready for it. You don't want to pre-beats just to get an ult off. It's more so what you want to do to save your own self. And it looks like the Oni Warriors will be banning away that Yu Huang. So not sending 5, 6 bans the way of Scream. Just going to be 3 at the moment, maybe 1 more if they get the chance. Either way, Baronic will not be able to play Yu Huang. We talked a bit in Game 1 about a possible, Morgan Le Fay or Janice, something like that. Just picks that Baronic used to go to, but we haven't seen him on too much as of recent. We'll have to see if they put any respect on the global presence of this Janice, or not wanting to really give that possibility to Dardes on the Morgan could be an option as well. Oleron going to be banned away as well. I think that's always going to be a smart pick when you're up against the Scarabs.
Yeah, whether that one ends up going into Baronic's hands in that mid, or if they flip-flop and throw this Jing Wei into mid for Baronic, you never know where this Oleron could peep its head out for the Solar Scarabs. So Yu Huang and Oleron banned away by the Oni Warriors. Solar Scarabs take away Artemis and Ho Yi. So keeping a couple of Hunter banned, since they already have at least their dual lane Hunter, try and limit some of what the Oni Warriors can go with. But Amuz and Cobb still available if the Oni Warriors want to go with that, to throw maybe that over in the dual lane. Heimdall also notably still available in that same regard. Even Rom, another auto attack style of Hunter that we haven't seen in some time. But the Solar Scarabs are going to draft what traditionally up until recent times has been 2 different style of support mages, but we've been seeing a lot of this Iset go mid as of recent.
Yeah, whenever Paul started playing it in mid, that's when I really was like, okay, I prefer to see this in the mid lane. I spoke up about it a lot in support and said, this is not a great support pick. Sure, it's annoying. Sure, it has CC, but you need damage to get Circle of Protection to actually be a great confirm on the objectives. Either way, I think mid lane is my favorite place for this East set. You still get the same amount of annoyance. You still get the same amount of CC. You just get a little bit less survivability and way more damage, way more objective clear, way more objective just confirm. And it looks like they are going to just go with the double dodge. The Solar Scarabs didn't ban it away. Maybe they weren't sure where the Kalina was going, but knowing that Nika's on this team, I always expect the Kalina to go into his hands, and it looks like you got a great transformation there with the Morgan. It's just going to be Rama. So Neil is going to have to be the sole tank on this squad, but Kalina with essentially 5 health bars, if she's able to just continuously heal with the Soul Eater procs, should be just fine being in the back line, being just as annoying as possible, hiding in the walls, all those sort of things. So the Oni Warriors just round off a solid draft here. I also like what the Scarabs are doing, but they saved Scream's pick for last, and this is usually what's going to round this off. Are they going to play for the early? Are they going to play for the late? More often than not, they're getting aggressive in the early no matter what style of jungle Scream picks, but he's going to have to whip out something new here.
We'll have to dig a little bit deeper into the God pool because the Kali, Mercury, Nemesis have all been banned away. Dodgy been taken away, and even if you want to include Kalina in the Assassins, but it will be Fenrir as the final god by the Solar Scarabs. Shelly, how do you feel about the Fenrir up into this Oni Warriors composition?
I love the Fenrir here. Anytime it's in a Dodgy, it's always going to be a decent option because you can simply Ragnarok to immune out the Palau and try and fight after the fact. It almost forces the Oni Warriors into 5 beats, and I would argue it does force them into 5 beats. Whoever doesn't get beats is going to be a target, no matter what here. And also, Fenrir is you know, more so an early stage pick, but ever since the Bumba's Hammer style build, the Golden Blade, and more auto attack based fenders have been coming out, you can still fight so well into the late game portion of the fight. You have a Nox on your team who's going to be grabbing beats for you. I think it rounds out quite well. Last time it was banned away, so Scream went to that Kali. Now Kali's banned away. Now he gets to be the dog.
So if you are playing this Fenrir or going into this matchup with the Oni Warriors, I mean, where for Scream, we saw the pressure go a little bit in towards the mid lane last time, and we saw him put some more heavy priority over in that soul lane to try and keep Nika down. For Scream, where on this Fenrir do you start putting that immediate kind of prioritization?
Well, given how this matchup has been going, the Scarabs seem to be looking over at soul lane, trying to get Scary D ahead. You've got a decent target in the Kalina anytime that dash goes through and she's not close to a wall. Pretty easy kills there, but Khepri is also a great target for Ragnarok, and Inbound is already in that lane, ready to get those beats down whenever need be. I would say right at level 5, expect to see Scream either all the way on the left side of the map or all the way on the right side of the map, depending. Morgan's not really a great option because she has so many different transformations to immune your ult. She can always stun out the Brutalize or simply just go invisible and run around and waste your time. So I expect to see Scream get very active either on this Khepri at level 5 or right on this Clean at level 5, depending on how the map is going.
And for the Oni Warriors, they're looking across the board, and really the only person that this Dodgy could somewhat easily maybe pull in with that pal out would be the ESET, no CC immunity into her kit. So if you're Cuvo Fred, are you looking at the mid lane, trying making sure to keep Baronic down, or do you maybe want to try and go over and help your dual lane out and try to get those guys ahead?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Cuvo follows Scream and just says, hey, I'm gonna wait for Ragnarok. Go ahead, pull him. And then just watch. right when you become on CC immune, you get to yeet him back, and then you always win that 1v1 trade. You can usually just Trickster Spirit. If you're able to juke out that jump from Fenrir, you always just have more DPS. Daji, one of the hardest hitting assassins that we have in this game. As long as you're able to immune that Brutalize, you should just be winning that trade. So I wouldn't be surprised if Cuvo just says, you know, let's ward up, see where this Fenrir wants to play, and I will also play there, and I'll simply just do it better.
I mean, we got to see some of the damage that Dodgy could do last game. Stewart felt the brunt end of that one where he got half health in an instant. We'll see if it's going to be the Solar Scarabs bringing it back for game 3, or will it be the Oni Warriors to run away with it?
Gormizer?
No?
Hold me. I'm scared.
Okay.
I don't know what's going to happen. I'm scared and stressed. And these two teams have gone the limit in game 1 and 2. And now they send us on to a game number 3, one final game of Smite to end this week in the SPL. And how important is it for both of these two teams to just get some momentum going, right? This Solar Scarabs team, they have made strides. They need a win, right? They need to see that 0, and no, this is only their second set. Don't get me wrong. They have plenty of opportunities to get wins in a very long phase. But just for some real tangible feedback that their improvement is making a difference. Get a win going into the next couple of matches that they have in this phase. Oni Warriors proving maybe to themselves and to viewers that their phase 1 was meaningful. That's how this team is going to play, wanting to show us that they are here to stay, here to play. And so a lot, I think, rides on the line here in game 3.
Well, and a lot like what you said, you know, you look at phase 1 and what their one win was versus the Valks, right? Like, so it's one of those things where it's like you beat the team that was new to the league. Is that really the accomplishment of getting that one, right? If you can take down the Warriors, who did wonderfully throughout phase 1, I think that's a really good start to you. I think next week they play the Kings and the Valks, so I think that would just be a really good boost of morale going into week number 2. Like you said, it's a long phase, double round robin this time around.
Yep.
So you're going to play everybody twice. This isn't the first time and only time that you're going to be meeting up against the Warriors. You're going to see them again. And so I think that just being able to find that win, you know, like you said, get that boost, but really show something, I think, a little bit more. A lot of the wins I would attribute to them prior to really recently. It's felt like kind of just Scream. And that last one felt a lot like, you know, 80% Scream, maybe 70% Scream.
Sure.
A little bit of Baronic, a little bit of Stewart, a little bit of Scary, a little bit of Inbound getting in there. But I think getting everybody else's hands in there is a really big deal for the Scarabs, and that's what I'm kind of keeping my eyes on. If this game goes well, is it just because Scream is playing well, or is everybody else going to kind of stack on top of it too?
I don't think that's ridiculous. I don't think that is that ridiculous for you to say. I mean, in a game where Scream gets 15+ kills and is on the Kali.
No, quite literally. Like, I will say that entire game was gifted to them by Scream because, that early game.
Said, I mean,
no matter what, that early game was Scream centric. Then everybody started playing well.
Yeah, that's the key because at the SPL everyone's so talented. If the rest of your team is having a horrible game, even if you're a Kali with a Scarab's Blessing, I'm hard-pressed to think that you're winning that game if the Solar Scarabs are. Because there are fights where Scream dies first, and the rest of the Scarabs have to step up. So, yeah, Scream did a lot of it on the Kali, as you'd expect, though. That's not a bad thing. That draft was built around Scream, doing what Scream did. This draft, though, a little bit different. Is different for the Oni Warriors as well. Scary D doesn't have the Eagles rally, just has some movement speed. Waiting for the cooldowns is Cuvo Fred. It's been a long chase out, and it looks like just a blue buff invade. First Blood will have to go and have to wait for that one for a little bit longer.
Honestly, I mean, look, First Blood feels way better there if you're able to get it. Stripping away some of the jungle's not the end of the world, though. Get rid of the blue buff. You're able to control a little bit more of this lane. Granted, I believe you just lost yours because Scary D still has one, so you're still maybe finding some balance over here. But the biggest thing to me, no First Blood within the first couple of minutes, so that's already slowed some things down for the Scarabs. They
this
didn't
game
lose
is dragging on.
Nika immediately. So, what they've done at this point is take some of the very early advantages that happen for the Scarabs. Granted, I think the way Scream plays Kali, it works well in that early game for them. But they've pumped the brakes on it. And a lot of what they have, at least the core three that the Warriors have in Cuvo, Dardes, and Neil, is the same as what we saw earlier in game number 1, and we'll do the same thing.
Cuvo Fred in on a Scary D, and that will be First Blood, and Cuvo Fred rotates to solo, and down goes the Bologna. Finally capitalizing on some early pressure, gets First Blood and level 5 on his way out.
And feels great for him. I think that because you're doing Transcendence first, granted it looks like it's going to be potentially Soul Eater, probably Soul Eater, that's what we saw a lot for Nika and specifically Kleena over there in solo lane. But being able to get closer to Trans a lot faster, that feels awesome to be able to start it off, kick things up for a really, really good start for him.
And Veronicor has been starting stacking items, been Book of Thoth, right, in the last couple of games. Yeah. It is a book. He's still reading, but this time Soul Reaver for a first item.
More like Soul Reader, am I right? Because it's a book.
It is a book. That one feels like low-hanging fruit that somehow we haven't hit over our 3 or 4
I've actually
years of
never heard
casting.
that one before.
No, we haven't.
And I've watched a lot of Smite. I've been a fan since launch tournament.
Right.
Prior to launch tournament.
Prior to even, although you were doing casting prior to like official SPL status.
Yeah, doing SEC and stuff.
Yeah, SEC and stuff.
Way back in the before times, before I was hired.
Gore, you have watched a lot of Smite. It's been many
and
years
I don't
of fun,
think I've
it?
ever said or heard the phrase Soul Reader.
Maybe
because
maybe
it's that bad of
yeah,
a joke.
Say, it's
not because it's like, oh, there's this funny thing that no one discovered. It's like,
right.
no, it's just because it's not.
It's been
funny.
known, but no one has been shameless enough to actually say it on broadcast until this very moment. We've made history here in Game 3 between
I've said
the
it
Warriors
multiple
and the
times.
I will warn you and everyone at home, my coffee has just been finished, and we know what happens when the caffeine really starts to hit. Could get completely out of sorts over the next 15
From what I remember,
or so
the last time you shotgunned an espresso, double espresso,
I was breakdancing.
You were breakdancing and then stood up and went, oh, my tummy hurts.
I did, and I kept it down, though, so I'm proud of that. But TBD. Probably no breakdancing while I've got the headset on. But if you hear some rattling and shaking.
That would explain why that cord gets so tangled up, though.
Right, it's
like it gets like very twisty.
Right.
It's because you breakdance.
All right, I'm getting us back on track. It's not the
Yes,
It's not caffeine time yet. Oni Warriors, on the back of a First Blood, have built up exactly a 200 gold lead, and a little bit of pressure rolling in to the next 5 minutes of this game. Stewart's going to want to chill, farm up a little bit, but you're going to want a lot of that on the ROM as well. But difference as far as Hunter builds go here for Ikavale to start off for Vote, and then Devour's Gauntlet for Stewart. So yes, stacking. More brawling maybe on the other side.
I was going to say, it's just stealing the note from Mifflin's book. This Ikaval just straight up means Vote is okay with boxing. He's okay fighting you, and he thinks he's going to be successful doing that.
Scream into the Ragnarok. And gobbles up Cuvo Fred, who's dropped down into the silence. All of the utility from the Solar Scarabs, but all the chains connecting. And a circle of protection goes searching, but delays this. The Oni Warriors jumping on the Solar Scarabs. And Baronic, the second to go down this game. Now Scream all out of sorts. And Scream left running. Another set of chains comes out. But this time the set of snipes, my goodness. One by one, they're all pulled back in. I'll take a double Daji to go, please. And Dardes snags 2, and the Oni Warriors pick up 3 more.
I mean, I don't know if there's much that needs to be analyzed about that one. Hey, guess what? Cuvo goes into the powwow, burns a lot of beads, gets a lot of good damage down, and then they get even more CC. And then Dardes goes into the powwow, gets some change, gets a lot of good damage down, and just for good measure, Vote throws out the ult from the mid camps to get some damage out there. I think that's just a really good fight. 2 kills now onto Scary D with a good pullback, but they shut down Scream, they slow down Baronic, and that was something we were worried about. Looking at this draft, going back to a pick similar to the Zeus, although I would argue maybe a little worse off than the Zeus in some ways, a little better off than the Zeus in others, right? A lot of good self-peel. I think Spirit Ball is one of my personal favorite abilities just because of how satisfying it feels to hit it. But you've got a silence, you've got damage, you've got circle of protection, a lot of really good things in there. You're still immobile. You're still going to be slow. Wing Gust can get you a little bit, but not enough.
Nika with 4 assists in the back pocket will head into the wall and stay safe on the jump in. Soul Eater now completely finished up. And so Nika hits a decent little power spike. The next 70 or so seconds, actually potentially worrisome for the Solar Scarabs.
Yeah.
Baronic without beads, Scream also without beads, has Ragnarok though, worth mentioning. And it's that second wind in some of these fights the one fight we've seen that I think made the big difference, because it was the initial chains out of Cuvo Fred, either burnt beads, forced Ragnarok, what have you. And then you delay, you take a quick breather. All of that wears off, and then Dardes is like, oh yeah, I can do it again. And that makes a big difference in that last fight. And so, yes, small window, that 70 seconds has now become 35 or so.
Morgan really is just the DJ call of Smite.
In what way?
Another one.
But only one. Only one.
Only one. You only get the one.
DJ
He does a lot.
He keeps going. only one more. Unless it's chains, then it's another one.
Okay, so in this, well, I guess it depends, because if you just want to call it like the chains from Daji, then in this case, the Morrigan is 2 chains.
Oh no!
Oh, the face you made at that. It wasn't that bad.
Gore,
was it?
You know what's funny? And I just thought about this. Yeah. I brought up Soul Reaver, hoping to talk about it. You made a horrible joke, and we never actually discussed the bad joke and moved on. There's something about Gore and Dave at the end of the day, and me and Miff at the end of the day, and me and Trelly.
Maybe it's you.
What's with me at the end of the day?
No, I got it too.
We all get bitten by the bug just a little bit. This day has not been
the bug is called.
This day has not been long at all, so we have no excuse. This is just you and I together, and who knows what's going to happen throughout the rest of this game. Look, when the players slow down a little bit, it opens up the door. So it's really their fault if you look at it that way.
I like that. Blame them.
Yeah, it's their fault. Neil Ma stunned down here.
Neil Ma wanted this.
All right, he did. Honestly, Neil probably would. Neil is the type who would enjoy something like this. Dardes, though, at 2-0-1, has been at the forefront of all the engagement so far, but so has Cuvo Fred. A hit on the Daji in Game 1, a brutal game in Game 2 where Scream just took everything over. Now back here in Game 3, affecting all 4 of the kills. Bead pressure has been there for the Oni Warriors. Solar Scarabs far from out of this. Way too early in this game, way too small of a gold lead. But you wonder if the Solar Scarabs now hoping to take a breather, slow this game down, and just stabilize.
I mean, you had highlighted earlier, right? I was thinking, and honestly expecting Cuvo, when Palau came back up, I was like, cool, beads are still down for another 40 seconds on Screamer Baronic, get in there, get something done. It didn't happen, right? It's been relatively slow since then. Beads are now back up for the main members of the Scarabs, so you are going to have a lot of an easier time dodging out some of that. Granted, you highlighted it. You still have to be worried about the second win. If you're Scream here, you're now worried about having to use beads and Ragnarok just to be defensive as opposed to being able to get aggressive with it. And so that can cause some trouble there in the jungle. Might be able to find something here onto Cuvo. Misses the jump, though, and Charlie highlighted, that's bad for you.
Neo with a nice abduct just kind of forces Scream to hesitate. Up into the powwow, Ragnarok's going to wear out. 2 chains are good. Double pull is good. And a massive silence from Nika forces the shell out of the Solar Scarabs to disengage from this fight. Scarabs blessing massive from Neoma keeps the kill total at 0 for the Solar Scarabs.
Oh, no.
You want another powwow, Gore? You want a second one? The Oni Warriors do, and Dardes wants a double. Another 3-kill swing for the Warriors.
And look, that's just so well played from them. I think it was highlighted by Trelly on the desk, but if that jump, if that stun from Scream does not connect, then that is a 1v1 that is going to be good for Cubo. You make it a 2v1, then a 2v3, the powwow comes through, beads get burned, people get pulled anyway, things like that set the Warriors up for insane kills. And then you get damage like this. I mean, Cubo, look, has been playing out of his mind. He played out of his mind in Game 1 on this dodgy pick. It did not look great in Game 2, but it, individual play-wise, chain-wise, things like that, was able to accomplish a lot. The Scarabs just had better counters to it. Now it is empowered. He's 2-0-5, along with the fact that Dardez is transforming into this, very similar to Game 1. It feels like too much for them to handle. And that is where things are really causing them more trouble. Beads are down for Boronic, and it's just an easy pick to beat up on. I mean, Soul Reaver, you wanted to talk about it. I'll bring it into the conversation because it's going to be good power. And if you hit your Spirit Ball, it's going to do a lot of damage.
Ouch.
But you got to hit it, and you got to be able to be able to survive through all of that for it to matter. That's where the Warlock staff comes in. That's going to give some of that survivability. But it needs to. I don't know if it's enough.
Cubo Fred will gank Soul Lane once more. And that is a damaging Daji chain. There you go. That's a pull and a kill on a Scary D. And Cubo Fred on a killing spree at 305, 100% kill participation, playing like a man possessed. Like he's the one who just drank some coffee. Gora, this is interesting. Boronic has continuously been dropping these circle protections at like the foot of the powwow, right? At the beginning of a lot of these fights, hoping for the detonation to roll through. I think the Warriors have done so well to just kind of a split second of hesitation, let the circle protection pop, and try to withstand that. Don't give it full value of damage and heal, and then reinitiate with Dardez later on. I think some of the counter plays the Scarabs have been looking for haven't quite been there at the beginning, middle, and end of some of these fights.
On the benefits of that specific placement as well, Cubo's got brawlers, so immediately you're getting smacked with 40% anti-heal, right? And then you've got a Divine Ruin. So if Cubo isn't getting that damage, somebody's still getting hit by some of the anti-heal. So you're able to spread it, I think, a little wider across the team, and so it makes it a little harder for it to be as impactful. The damage, again, the damage numbers with the build like this are going to be fine, but I think, in instances, and I think it's forgivable when you're going for stacking items because it's helpful to get those online, but going for the Soul Reaver first, it feels like you can really tell Boronic is missing a starter item just in the play. Like, it just feels like everything's a little worse for wear, not quite able to clear the waves as well, not as survivable, whether it's, the cooldown, the mana, whatever, that would have been assisting him. It's just not quite there anymore.
Gore, I just want to zoom out for a second.
Yeah.
I'm surprised the Warriors got Daji Morrigan again.
Yes.
That's just now that I'm thinking, that's like my blanket statement, because this was through the second wave of bans, right? Daji was the 4th pick, I believe, for the Oni Warriors, so it made it through all 5 bans and the first 3 picks from the Solar Scarabs. Had to have been assumed that this pick was going to be rolling out, and maybe that's why some of these picks from the Scarabs were in. Again, circle protection, maybe at the foot of the powwow, things like that. The Ragnarok for Scream to kind of counter out some of it. Safety from Stewart. I'm just blanket surprised that the 1-2 punch of Morrigan and Daji was able to make its way back through.
I think what is most interesting to me, and maybe we'll have to hold that thought because Nika
is fine.
Yeah, no, just fine, as it turns out. Inside a wall, and now
that's obnoxious.
The Warriors are going to be able to get the Gold Fury.
Gold Fury is low, and I'll hold my thoughts on what happened over in the Soul Lane for just a second, as Gold Fury will get taken by the Oni Warriors, and the gold lead builds up even further, 5,000 or so now for the Oni Warriors. Cubo Fred, not going to be bothered. There's a kill finally, as Scream snags one on Nika. I was about to say how obnoxious that is, that Eagles rally, Ragnarok, and Nika says, nah, I'm all right, and just goes into the wall. Stewart a chance here. It's a lot of damage onto Neoma. Airstrike gets some good value as a disengage tool. Snipes, though. How close could this be?
Ooh, if that last one hits, it's a kill.
Yeah, I'm thinking that's close. If not, definitely a kill. Vote hits 1 and 2, but not 3. Stewart luckily back to base with passive, gets back to lane, and keeps himself on the map. Little breathing room now, right? I mean, over on right for Scary D, 15 or so seconds till Nika's back.
Yeah, it's going to be... like you said, I guess breathing room really is just the best phrase for it, right? You've got a moment where you can finally get some farm, try to play catch up. Up to that point,
uncontested, right?
008, right? So a part of every single kill that had happened, you're able to, yeah, James Bond's older brother,
right.
does really well. I think really good to get that kill. Maybe not the biggest shutdown. I think Dardes Cuvo definitely going to be worth the most, but still, anything is better than nothing. But it's such a small, what feels like small dent for the Scarabs. I think it's a good kill to start things off, but what can you do afterward? I mean, you get bullied out on left, even though you're able to successfully do something on right. Now with Cubo over here, this might be a good 2v2 for the Warriors.
Oh my god, that damage. Nika plus Cubo Fred equals a whole lot that Scream doesn't want. The bleed, no. And now Eagles rally out from Scary D. Someone's going to die here. And beads out from Scary D, only delays the inevitable. Cubo Fred, this 4th of the game, the back and forth nature of the jungle conversation in this set, has now landed the meter back on the Oni Warriors and Cubo Fred's side of things. 405, 100% kill participation, Oni Warriors. This feels methodical. Nothing hype, no big team fights, right? It's just methodical. Picks, towers, farm, the dominoes there for the Oni Warriors.
And, well, they're going to have a little bit here. I like the Nox ult, get some damage reduction spread throughout the Warriors, make sure that they're not going to be able to deal as much. But you're still not able to control the lane the way that they would like. And I think a lot of it is the way that this draft just plays out. I think the Warriors are playing a little bit stronger.
I was hoping that would be a confirmed 1v1. I mean, Vote should win. He's 2 levels up and further on in the item build to the tune of a tier 2 item. But not knowing where everyone on the Solar Scarabs is, maybe has Vote thinking twice. Trebuchet at least spawned for the Scarabs. So
yeah, they've been doing good on that part.
You got to start looking at avenues back into this game because the Scarabs are one bad team fight away from what feels like Game 3 being a sealed deal. Maybe some scaling. Gore Baronic hits a pretty big power spike here. Completed Obsidian Shard, fully stacked on the Warlock staff. Mask now finished up for inbound, so Nox can hang out in these fights a little bit longer. Scream finishes up Hydra. So as far as power spikes go, you're getting there. But it's like moments like this, you got to make these kills stick. And Neoma's able to get out.
Yeah, I think a good silence. I think inbound being involved might actually change a little bit of this, just having that silence available to them a little more often, having the root available, having that ult from the Nox available could and should make things a little harder for the Warriors. How much harder is really the question, right? Can it open up opportunities for Scream to go big?
Scarabs do confirm the Pyromancer. I thought Nika had a fighting chance at stealing that away. Dardes in. Dardes stun. Inbound low, but now Dardes jumped on. Will use the beads and gets the transformation, but Dardes through the Aegis gets taken low. Cubo Fred pulls inbound back in on the back end of the fight. Dardes ends up dying at the early part of this fight, and now Cubo Fred all alone gets taken down. It's a massive shutdown from the Solar Scarabs. You want a way back into the game, it's an overstep from the Oni Warriors that's punished by the Scarabs.
And maybe the most important kills you can get. Both 4-0 at that time, that is going to be a huge swing for you. And they got Dardes before the transformation could happen.
Whoa.
That is how this draft can work and be successful.
No stun from Baronic, but Vote wants more. Full HP, he's got Neoma in front of him. It's everything you could want. Nika's going to go low through the wall here. Actually, don't know how that works. It'll spit you out of the wall at some point, right?
It'll yell at you.
It won't let you stick around in there if you get too low. So that's an overstep from Cubo Fred. Maybe too much going too well for the Oni Warriors jungler. Just gets a little bit too aggressive in the back line of that fight, and that's exactly what the Solar Scarabs needed. Now all 3 of the Scarabs' kills lie with Scream, who again finished up Hydras and is in a pretty good spot. But Cubo Fred goes back and hits a nice power spike item of his own, tier 2. On that Titan's Bane. And so it feels like a sidestep from the Oni Warriors, not game-changing just yet, but a moment that reminds them the Scarabs absolutely have some fight back.
It's the do you bleed moment, right? Like, yes, you will. You can be taken down. These aren't just easy fights for you. And I think it goes to showcase that for both of these teams, it really is almost that simple, right? If you can survive and maybe deal with that onslaught the Warriors have been throwing at the Scarabs the entire game, then the Scarabs have a great team fight. They have a wonderful grouping. You get a lot of damage here from Baronic. You've got a lot of damage when Stuart joins the foray, and he's able to out-rotate Vote most of the time. So it's going to really help, I think, in a lot of these late game team fights. But it's how well do you deal with the Pal-Out at the beginning? How well can you kill off Dardes? I think you said overextension, not just overextension, but not necessarily great positioning from the Warriors through that fight either. Cuvo's very deep, goes for the Pal-Out, you know it's going to get beadsed Then when Dardes is trying to fight, Dardes was 1/3, 1/4 HP before the ult even starts.
Nika into the Ragnarok and Eagles Rally and the damage from the Scarabs. As Nilma used the beads, maybe by accident. Was maybe hoping for the ultimate. As a matter of fact, I think that's exactly what Nilma was looking for. Scarab's Blessing not used, Nika dies. And there's another opening for the Solar Scarabs. And what I think I want from the Scarabs here at this point, Gore, is realizing that there are some oversteps from their Warriors. Realize that as the game goes on, now Oni Warriors far from full build, so gold lead still matters. But there's still a chance as the game goes on. I don't want to see the Solar Scarabs make like a desperation play, like pull a Fire Giant, like try to sneak it away. Contest maybe. But the way things are going, the Solar Scarabs have been able to find these individual picks that are keeping things a bit more stable.
Yeah, honestly, I think that this is a good state for them to be in, right? Or the Ragnarok getting to get used aggressively this time around instead of defensively. A lot of it in 5-on-5s depends on, I think, Cuvo and Dardes to really lead the show for the Warriors. But the Scarabs have been playing this incredibly well, especially, again, the silence from inbound, the silence from Baronic being able to deal with that.
This is what I thought was going to be maybe the biggest moment of the game so far. Scream had just backed on the left side of the map a Trebuchet. Again, for the Solar Scarabs, the Scarabs have been controlling the Trebuchets, pushing down the left side, so some pressure on the Tier 1 tower over in the duo lane. Oni Warriors pulled Fire Giant. I'd wondered if the Scarabs would step up. And now we're going to get that answer. Again, contest. Maybe not the miracle moment that the Solar Scarabs are looking for. And just showing some face means the Oni Warriors will back themselves away. Again, just a 5,000 gold lead, far from backbreaking. Means the Oni Warriors still have to consider all options in a lot of these fights. Really, namely, I think, where Scream goes, where this Ragnarok lands. It's pivotal as far as controlling the team fights. And Cuvo Fred, again, positioning properly, not overextending. Everyone's got beads right now for the Solar Scarabs. Might need some extra setup to get these fights to go well.
Yeah, I think the draft from the Scarabs just has a lot of potential behind it, right? That's part of the reason they have to play so cautiously. Because with a 5K gold lead, if you try to find the picks that you were looking for earlier, it might not go as easily for you. I think there's a lot of moments for the Warriors to maybe start things up. They just have to do it carefully.
Scarabs do pull the objective. The Solar Scarabs down 5,000 gold. Pull the FG. Stewart run down by Cuvo Fred. And now the Jingwei has to leave the fight. Airstrike gets used and TKO'd is the Solar Scarabs ADC. So Fire Giant pulled by the Oni Warriors. Cuvo Fred up into the Pal-Out. Dardes uses the beads, transformed into the Bologna. Fire Giant is low. Circle of Protection is down, and the Oni Warriors delay the objective. And now the Solar Scarabs run at, but Cuvo Fred has got the Scarabs Blessing on his head, and he will survive the fight, and the Oni Warriors confirm the FG.
Nika's incredibly low, and they have to get out of here. Everybody else has most of their health. Neil would have been maybe a little more worried if Vote didn't exist. He's going for the snipes.
Vote's got snipes.
Oh my
One
God.
hit, two hit. Baronic! No, nearly gets it. But uses the Aegis, actually. The third may have hit, but Baronic has Aegis to keep himself on the map. Oni Warriors make a big play. Thin margins. Again, not a wide enough gold lead that is easy for the Oni Warriors. And the Solar Scarabs do what they can, come up just a bit short. First Fire Giant of the game to the Warriors.
This is where things get a little more dramatic, which is wild to say in this set, because things have been very dramatic, I think, for a lot of it.
Would you consider me dramatic, Gore?
As a person?
Yeah. Sometimes.
Yeah, on occasion, definitely.
Every once in a while, it'll just hit.
Not every day, but there's definitely some overly dramatic day moments.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's the day where you walk into the green room and I'm just sprawled out on the couch. You just know that we're going to be having one of those days. Also dramatic in the opposite direction where, like, the mental is just a little extra tweaked sometimes, you know. And
sometimes, like, one thing goes wrong and the world ends for Dave.
Well, yeah, that's just...
But that's true. That happens to everybody.
That's just the way of the world.
I think.
You're right, though, Gore. You're right, though. This game now takes a big turn for the Solar Scarabs. You're hanging in there. You had stabilized. It's been like 5K gold lead for 10 minutes. But with Fire Giant on the Oni Warriors, how things change. We send Scream to the right. Should be a tier 2 for the Fenrir. Wonder how quickly the Oni Warriors try to send some damage towards this Phoenix while the jungler of the Scarabs is gone.
Honestly, I like the defense for the Scarabs. You know, with the Fenrir, it's even better, but you've got a lot of good silences, good AoE, like denials, and I think that the Scarabs are able to cover a lot of that. And so just being able to repel at the Phoenix line is impressive for them. And honestly, that's where they've been winning these fights, is little moments like this. I think if you overextend as the Warriors, that's an easy pickup for the Scarabs. They burst you, kill you under the Phoenix. And then they can clear up at least some of those towers and make the map state feel a little more equal.
Yeah, I don't know. Between these two teams, there's gonna be a twist somewhere in this game, Gore. There's got to be. This has been too straightforward for how back and forth and up and down this set has been so far. Something has got to raise the intrigue levels here, unless the Oni Warriors have dialed back the clock to phase 1 and are playing some of the cleanest Smite we've seen from them so far here in phase 2. It looks like with just a minute left on the buff itself and 2 minutes left on the respawn for the FG, the win for the Solar Scarabs, I think, is just keeping all your Phoenixes on the map at this point. You're going to be a bit further behind in gold. Big item spikes around the corner for the Oni Warriors. You didn't lose any team members. Everyone from the Scarabs is able to stay on the map. And you're not worried about fire waves pushing in. I think that's got to be a win for the Scarabs in a game where you haven't had many.
Yeah, with, 40 seconds left on the power play, just like you said, keeping your Phoenixes up feels great.
Right.
You've got a Trebuchet on the other side. You lost the Fury. I'm more watching, and it was, in hand gold just a little bit ago, but how much these items are going to jump up, because you can see just now having already spent for Nika gets the Heart Seeker though, so that's a massive power spike. Dardas doesn't get as big a power spike, just the tier 2 on the Ob Shard, but that's still some good percent pen that you're going to be able to bring. It's mainly Cuvo with the 2400 and very specifically the ROM, right? Going for another item here on this back. It's going to be pretty massive for them. And that's going to really enhance it. A chin size going into another fight around the FG feels really good against inbound and really, really good up against Scary D.
Cuvo Fred, 2.6k gold in hand. We'll have plenty of time to go back, reset.
He's just going to get a whole
gold.
item.
Yeah, he will. You got 45 seconds before the next Fire Giant. It will be actually nearly exactly enhanced when it spawns. So the next one will be an enhanced Fire Giant. And that really is kind of this tilting point for the Scarabs, right? Do you value enhanced Fire Giant enough with how far behind that they are? The question ends up being, if we give it over for free, what are the odds that we actually defend our base versus what are the odds that we win a fight prior to the enhanced Fire Giant going down? Not a game of chess, not a bet that I envy the Solar Scarabs having to make.
It's honestly, trying to think about it. I personally value the EFG a little bit more. I think if you lose this, your defense is good, and I don't think you throw your bodies at it. I don't think you full team wipe just to try and get it. But I think you have to show face around here, and if it seems like things are going bad, get out as best you can. But I don't think that you let them have it for free. I think you have to show up, especially because the way this itemization has gone, all those power spikes that just came through, plus now not having to worry about backdoor protections, those Phoenixes will be very easily taken down, and the dives will be guaranteed essentially from the Warriors.
Small note, Trebuchet pushing down the left side of the map for the Oni Warriors will take a little while, but eventually we'll reach the Phoenix line and start dealing some damage to the left side of the map for the Solar Scarabs. Now that would be a very lengthy Fire Giant dance to have the Trebuchet making a similar impact to, say a Fire Minion wave, something like that. But Stewart has actually gone back. I wonder if when the Oni Warriors see this, it's an immediate Fire Giant push. Now with the passive, of course, Jingwei can head back to base, get back to Fire Giant a little bit quicker. And if you look at the map, Cuvo Fred starting to drift away. So it actually looks like a very well-timed push from Stewart. The Oni Warriors won't have the damage here to immediately pull out the FG. I think it's well played, well called, and good bit of macro play there from the Solar Scarabs. Oof. A look from the Oni Warriors. This one will come up empty-handed. Does end up being a Fire Giant pull. Stewart clears the last of that wave, heads back to base, but again, the passive will get the Jingwei back on the map. Neomot eats the ultimate from inbound, but Fire Giant reset. Again, feels like there's still some drama over the horizon. in a game where the Oni Warriors have controlled things from the start.
They got what they wanted out of that, though. So we didn't highlight it, but Cuvo with that massive amount of gold got a Blood Forge just now. Darda's finished the upstart, and look at inbound, just deleted.
Yeah, you're not looking at inbound for much longer because he is off the map. Palau's up, Palau's down. Dardes transforms, looking for the beadsless targets, and Veronic's one of them. As two Palaus separate out this map, this is maybe the final chance for the Scarabs to get back into this game, and they're taking their chance. At least Scary D is, but the Oni Warriors will have none of it. Stewart through the Aegis, gets burned down by Dardes, who's got a double. Scary D, the last on the map, and the Oni Warriors capitalize. Vote waves goodbye to the tune of a double kill, and the Oni Warriors send it down mid.
That one is just much more controlled. From the onset of the game, the Warriors are fighting the same way they did in game number 1, but with a lot less clapback from the Scarabs. Honestly, I'm impressed with the Scarabs still. I think there was a lot of moments that they are able to continue to cause doubt. I mean, the Warriors had a 10K gold lead, and yet the Scarabs are still present enough to make them worry a little more about it. But ultimately, I think that the way they've been playing, the way that they use this Morgan, the way specifically Nika's damage was able to apply a lot, it's opened up a whole avenue for them. And with the way Cuvo has been playing this Daji all day, there's very little question about who I would give credit to. I think that pick, in conjunction with Dardes, as well as having, again, good damage on the sides. But let's just talk about those two, because I think they are a huge reason this team got as ahead as they did early on, and it really did open up the doors for them to have that massive control.
Yeah, again, Cor, I was raising my eyebrows. You and I were walking in here during picks and bans. I mean, Daji was the obvious choice, right?
We were even talking. We were like, all right, so it's Daji plus who's the hunter?
Right, one of the hunters. So you already had Morgan locked in. It was just the obvious choice for Cuvo Fred. The Oni Warriors bit back and forth in the first 2 games of this set, but a dramaless game number 3 gives Oni Warriors a win in 3 games over the Solar Scarabs. That's it for Gormizer and I, and as such, back to the desk to break it down.
Thank you so much, Dave and Gorn. What a game 3 it was for the Oni Warriors. Back and forth in game number 1, back and forth in game number 2, but the Oni Warriors get a draft very similar to their game 1 style. Dardes gets to go back on Morgan. Cuvo Fred gets to go back on his carry Daji for now a 3rd game in a row. And Nika gets one of his hard carries in the solo lane of Kleena. It's something we saw happen in the picks and bans. You saw the Kleena get locked and you went, well, Nika's ready to kind of pop off this game, and pop off he and the rest of the Oni Warriors did, Trelly.
Yeah, Dardes especially, I think, that's what I said about, like maybe let the Daji through but take away the Morgan, maybe let the Morgan through take away the Daji, but letting them both through cannot happen, and it did. And this happened quite a lot, where you just saw Dardes turn into Daji from the Morgan, and just create so much space, and it just never looked good. I don't know why these picks were able to get through. It was unfortunate. I thought they had a decent matchup against it, right? The Fenrir, the Nox, I think they had some answers, but just so well executed by the Warriors. They knew exactly what they were here to do. They picked their right draft, and they executed perfectly.
Yeah, Dardes pretty much only utilizing this Daji throughout the entirety of the game, waiting for Cuvo Fred or vice versa, Cuvo waiting for Dardes to start up these Palaus, get those first sets of beads, get those first sets of ultimates off the board, and then the other one to come clean up these kills, and then going into these late game team fights. Inbound steps just a little too far forward, and Vote, Dardes, and Cuvo put them in the dirt right away, and then instantly you now have a Solar Scarabs draft without their lockdown, without their front line, without an ultimate that would be able to try and shut these guys down. The Oni Warriors are able to steamroll through at the end of the game.
Yeah, man, the Vote was hitting the snipes during that all as well. It's rare you see a team come together like this, right, where it's just like it wasn't that close of a game. The Oni Warriors were really just kind of dominating this one, and then it looked like Scream and Scary D showed some life. Maybe there was going to be some fight back, and just not going to be the case. Dardes 6-1, Cuvo 4-2, and then Vote was 5-0 in the duo lane. I'm not going to say a sleeper in this match because, again, he was doing a fair bit of damage and the snipes were on point, but the stat lines don't lie, and he was able to be a part of those fights just as much. So props to the Oni Warriors for just drafting the right comp, and it worked out twice. That's all it had to do, right? Even though you dropped the game too, it doesn't really matter in that point.
Yeah, Nika topping the damage charts at nearly 29,000 on that Kleena solo. We've been seeing time and time again just how potent that god can be, even though some teams aren't showing that same level of favoritism towards this assassin anymore. We've been seeing a lot more of these hunters, some of these warriors popping their way back out. So everybody kind of getting a breath of fresh air and a reminder as to just exactly what a Kleena can do, especially if she kind of just goes uncontested, because it felt like for most of the game, Charlie, that they were trying to put pressure on Nika, but Nika had their number every time, was constantly sitting inside those walls waiting for them to just leave.
Yeah, and I think that's because there was a lot of pressure put onto that lane. Cuvo was constantly sitting and soloing in the beginning because pretty easy ganks with Daji as long as Scary D pushed up a little bit too far, wasn't enough to get away. You can't run to your tower line, and it just started to stack one after the other. And then the fights weren't just in solo. They'd start in solo, and they'd rotate over the mid. We saw the beautiful pull-in by Dardes there just to make sure that fight went their way as well, and it was just too much to deal with.
Yeah, it was a little bit too much. The Oni Warriors find themselves a 2-1, and we'll get to talk to the mid laner of the Warriors himself, Dardes, standing by for our pregame interview. First off, congrats on the win up against the Scarabs. Tell me how it feels for the team finally able to get your first win of the season, or of the phase, I should say.
Well, I mean, it feels good for sure. A win always feels good, but we have so many issues right now, and we had a bad week of streams, and we just need to get back to practice and very good practice, and because we have in so much struggles right now, it's hard.
Yeah, a bit of a struggling game too, at the very least, up against the Scarabs. They were able to find some success there. Game number 1, you guys got to run the the double dodge E style of composition. Game number 3, it gets down to those bans, and you don't see the dodge E get banned away. It's obviously not getting locked in. Did you guys just go, wow, this is the freest pick that we could have gotten right now?
I mean, I don't think double dodge is that good, but I mean,
you fooled me.
no, I mean it's still really good. It's still really good, of course, and we were surprised that they didn't ban dodge for sure. So yeah, I mean, why not?
Yeah, I mean, you guys had a good game 1, a good game 3 to kind of close this one out. And now you guys get to take a little bit of a break, at least from the games, and then get you guys set up for next week. I mean, is there anything maybe in particular, kind of going through the minds of your team, to get ready for the next weeks of play?
Yeah, we need to play new guards because I feel like our guards are not working right now. Well, they're not working that well. So we need to practice so much more stuff and shit, and yeah.
All right, well, we hope you can get some of that practice in, get you guys ready for next week. Congrats on your win. I'll let you get back with the team to celebrate.
Thank you.
I think it's important to come from an interview like that, saying, we still have a lot of stuff to work on. They always say, winning feels great. Losing, you learn a lot. Even losing in that only in one of those 3 games, you still learn a lot of lessons. And even at the very end of that, saying that maybe we need to start working on some new things entirely because maybe it's not working out as well for our team. We will take a look, though, one final look at the schedule for week number 1 to see everything that you may have missed out on. The Camelot Kings find a win at this very start of the week over the Dragons, Levi's over the Warriors, and now the Warriors today find their win over the Solar Scarabs. So the Jade Dragons finish out their week 1-1, the Valkyries an 0-2, same with the Solar Scarabs who dropped to the Olympus Bolts earlier on. Levi's also sitting at an 0-2, and the Camelot Kings the only team to come out undefeated this week with a 2-0 of their own. That'll allow us to now jump into the standings to see how things break down, at least for our very first week of play. Camelot Kings at the top of the board over everybody else. Tartarus Titans and the Bolts with their 1-0s will make sure that they sit at the top at number 2 and 3.
There we go. Yeah. So Camelot Kings, Camelot Kings getting the 2-0. A few 1-1s, and then the 1-0s. The Tartarus Titans and Olympus Bolts didn't quite get to play the 2 times this week, but it'll all come back around. We'll get to see who truly stands on top.
Yeah, we will get to take a look at the schedule for next week of the SPL, because remember, this was just week number 1 of our multi-week that's going on in phase number 2. Remember, it's a head-to-head, it's this double round robin throughout the entirety, so we've still got many weeks more to play. And taking a look immediately out, we get to start our week with the Jade Dragons against the Olympus Bolts. What a matchup to start, followed by the Warriors and the Titans Saturday. Scarabs, Valks, Dragons, Levi's will be another good one. Then the Bolts, Warriors, Valks, Titans, and the Scarabs and Kings to round out our Sunday. But, man, we keep putting some of the banger sets immediately on the very first day.
That's what I'm saying. We're going to lose one of these. I mean, it's one game, but we're going to lose one of the 3 undefeated teams right at the beginning. Just game number 1 between the Dragons and the Bolts. We'll see who comes out. More often than not, the Dragons were able to win out in the Bolts, but they've been cooking up something, I'm sure. So I'm sure it's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, it's going to be another fun week of SPL action. So make sure that you tune in next week, starting on Friday, 11 a.m. on behalf of myself, Charlie, Casters Production, everyone else behind the scene. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.